Testing 1, 2, 3. We all read, Isaac? Cool. Awesome. These two blink. That one doesn't blink, but it does record. Yeah, we're money. Awesome. Dude, all right. So now finish the story. So I want to get this on the interview. So you're sitting. What was the event you were at?
So I was in Austin, Texas, and I went to a flow grappling event. And so I got connected to one of the founders of a company called BJJ Fanatics. And so what that is it's a online education platform for jiu-jitsu. And so him and I have known each other for a while. His name is Michael Zenga, and he invited me to go out to Austin, Texas to be a part of this flow grappling Who's Number One event. And essentially it's just like a invite-only, one-on-one grappling tournament.
You're deep in this BJJ stuff.
I'm pretty deep.
Yeah.
And so there's about eight battles, right, one-on-one. And so I was there for a couple days, got to meet some of the guys. It was great. But when the event actually happened, I was fortunate enough to be sitting in the VIP area because Flow Grappling was super generous to me. So I'm sitting down, and here, sure enough, I see Joe Rogan and this guy, Eddie Bravo. And they're both like, I don't know how to equate it, like maybe to the CrossFit space when you meet some of these people for the first time, like, oh, I know that guy, and I think I know him really well, but he has no idea who I am. And so Joe sits maybe 2 seats down from me. I'm just sitting there like, I'm like a little kid. I'm like, I want to say hi, but how do I say hi and not be weird? I don't want to be that guy. So sure enough, I just went over and was like, hey man, my name is Jason. I'm just a really big fan of your show. Everything you've done. Hope you're doing well. That was it. Like super, super basic. I don't want to be that guy. Whatever. Fanboying. So I go to sit back down and someone yells like, oh, he's a, CrossFit Games champion. And so we ended up talking about CrossFit very, very briefly. And then the event started. So I sat back down. So then an hour or two later, this is hours later, the event's starting, and it just wasn't appropriate to create a conversation. So I go back by and I introduced myself to Eddie Bravo, who is like a pioneer in the jiu-jitsu space. He started a company called 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, which is no gi compared to gi. It definitely, I could talk more about it, but it's definitely the next level in terms of where I think jiu-jitsu is going in the future. It started off in gi in Brazil, and then now I think it's going more towards no gi. But anyway, so I introduced myself to him, and then Joe's like, oh yeah, that's the CrossFit guy. I was like, oh, okay. And then he's like, oh yeah, there's some hot chicks in that. Or one of Eddie's like, oh, there's some good looking girls. We got into the wrong sport.
Yeah.
And we talked about that for maybe 30 seconds. That was my whole interactions with Joe Rogan at the Flow Grappling event. I mean, we sat next to each other for hours, but that was the only time we just spoke.
So, and just like I was telling you, when I heard CT Fletcher on there, and he's just I think he's one of the more interesting people in the fitness space, because you look at his story, the heart attack, it's your set motherfucker. I love his stuff. But when he name dropped you over and over, and he was pushing you because he had just come off the back end of doing your podcast and he was singing your praises, I was like, oh, this would be great. Jason's going to get on there. I remember texting you about it. I want to ask you something. Did you watch Frazier's interview?
I did.
Okay.
So I watched Frazier's. And by the way, CT Fletcher, for people that don't know him, he is just a really good dude, man. He's hard and competent. He's that guy. But man, when you sit down with him for lunch, or when you really see the way he interacts with his wife, it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
But anyways,
he's a hard motherfucker. I mean, that guy's gonna be hard to kill. He survived that entire bypass and all that. I mean,
he actually got the heart transplant right up here.
Really?
Yeah,
why. Is he full vegan now?
I don't know if he's full vegan, but I mean, he lives down south in Southern California, and then he used to come up to Northern California in Palo Alto to the VA hospital to get all that stuff done. So that's the way him and I, we had already connected years and years ago, but we started connecting more because when you would come up here for treatments or different things, I would just we'd go out to lunch or whatever.
Going back to the Frazier interview. So again, in the affiliates, a lot of the gym owners I work with that are CrossFit affiliates, a lot of people they didn't like the way Matt portrayed CrossFit, that kind of thing. You've watched it. What's your take on it?
So the first, I think it's really important that in this day and age, it's very easy to be reactive. And for myself in particular, I look back at some of the things, and there's always situations in life that you wish you handled a little bit differently. Hindsight's always 20/20. But I think what I'm learning is to be slower to have a reaction or a judgment until I really understand the full picture. And so I think if you don't listen to the entire podcast and you just were to look at what someone said about it, I think you should listen to the whole thing before you pass judgment.
Sure.
That being said, I did listen to the whole thing. And I think that Matt just spoke his truth. It'd be the equivalent if, Peyton Manning is on a podcast. Is he going to go out there and have to scream from the hilltops about how great the NFL is or how incredible the NFL as an organization is? I mean, no, he doesn't have any. He doesn't have any. I guess like he doesn't have to do that.
And I think this is a perfect example. We've talked about this before. There is too much of a confusion and a crossbreed and an incestual bipolarization of the CrossFit brand. You have CrossFit affiliate owners upset because a professional CrossFitter didn't talk well about the CrossFit affiliate. And these are two different worlds.
Totally. And he has no obligation.
Yes.
Matt had no obligation, none, to go out there and go say anything about anything. He just needed to speak his truth. Yeah. That's it. And if you look at like old school CrossFit, right back in the day, you would want someone to go on Joe Rogan, the largest podcast in the world, and really scream from the hilltops about the community, about the affiliate model, even understanding the affiliate model. You would want someone to know that. But that was back in the day. Now things have shifted. These are professional athletes, just like Peyton Manning would. Whereas maybe back in the day, you might have some of these athletes like myself who owns and operates gyms, who might be more in the actual culture, teaching seminars, etc. But the sport has shifted, and Matt doesn't owe anybody anything. Is my thought. Do I think that if you're an affiliate owner, did he, scream from the hilltops about how amazing CrossFit is? I mean, he just spoke his perspective on it, And I don't see how anybody could really get mad at him about that.
It was incredible to have conversations with people who took, and I get it. I have the empathy for a gym owner coming off of COVID who struggles, like, holy shit. We got Matt Frazier on Rogan. This is the perfect time. If I needed a CPR to just to get some good words, some good SEO in my small part of Cleveland, Ohio, wherever you're at, I get the need for wanting Matt to go ham and brag about the CrossFit affiliate scene. But again, the dude is just clearly just ignorant in a good way. Just like, I don't know. I don't do that stuff. I do the sport. I don't do the gym business thing.
Yep.
And again, that's one of my biggest gripes of CrossFit. One of the reasons I left that is I couldn't outmarket CrossFit when there's the sport of CrossFit and then there's the fitness methodology / GPP brick and mortar thing of CrossFit. I couldn't outmarket that huge bipolar brand. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go do my own thing. I know you've obviously found the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, to sum up Matt's podcast, I thought it was a good podcast. I thought they had great organic conversation, just like what we're shooting for today, just having a conversation. And I believe that Matt just spoke his perspective on CrossFit. And he got started in a different way than some of the OGs did. But the way that he got started is very similar to the way most people are getting started today.
Yeah.
Like if you're actively trying to be a competitor in the CrossFit space, you probably aren't also being necessarily a coach.
Yeah, or a level with someone.
Yeah, and that's okay. Yep. And so, yeah, that's just my perspective on it. I thought, and I think for any owner who got frustrated about that, I think it's important to reflect on these athletes, whether it's him or another athlete, they don't owe the sport technically anything.
Sure.
Would we like to see that? Of course. Like I would like to go on there and obviously preach and share my perspective, which I've traveled the world and taught CrossFit. And I have so many thanks for CrossFit, right? And I would share that. But Matt didn't have that exact same perspective because he didn't teach seminars for CrossFit. He didn't work for CrossFit. He worked for himself and he competed as a professional athlete.
I have a question for you. You are the only, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am. You're the only one to have done the CrossFit Games thing and then parlay that into a gym business at the level that you have. And there were plenty of people that own it. Ben Smith owns a gym. If Rich has got
Handshake has a gym.
Yeah, so these guys have gyms. But we can all maybe assess, or maybe it's probably the wrong assessment, but I'm ignorantly speaking that it's probably a thing that maybe it makes money, maybe it breaks even, it allows them to train, it's fun for them, they have sponsorships. It's probably not their main nut of how they're supporting their family. Yours, this entire empire that you've built, you're the only one that kind of made it out that and did that thing. When, if you were to step back and talk to anyone third party and say, hey, listen, to these guys, they're CrossFit athletes, at some time the limelight's gone and they got to move on to something. What should they do? Well, they should open gyms. Why do you think you're the only one who is able to make brick and mortar work at scale?
I mean, I think it's because I got into the fitness business before I even found CrossFit and before I found competing in CrossFit. Meaning, I already knew I was going to own a gym when I was like 17.
When you were working for Joe at that Globo gym.
Yeah. So I already knew that, right? And so I started off from a business side and then found CrossFit and fell in love with the methodology and fell in love with the coach. And so it was a different mindset. I still remember, in the early days of CrossFit, it was really frowned upon to look at it as a business. It was so community driven, which is great. But at the same time, you have to feed your family and provide for other people. And so for me, ever since day one, been really trying to treat it like a business and not a hobby. And it is very difficult to do that. Like this day and age, it's very difficult to be a professional athlete right now in CrossFit with the time dedication that's required and also open up a brick and mortar gym. And frankly, I don't even know if that's the right route right now. I think what professional CrossFit athletes should do right now, if I could, like, let's just take someone who's at the top of the sport, or let's just take like Noah Olson. I just talked to him. So I love Noah. I think he's a great guy. He's been at the sport for a long time. My recommendation for him would be obviously create these partnership agreements with sponsors, maybe try and get equity in these businesses instead of just trying to get a paycheck, because if one day they grow to something special, you can maybe get something better.
Yeah, we're talking wealth over cash.
Right. But in addition, I would try and use this microphone that I'm creating to then draw people into other things that I'm doing. I think it's important to recognize the difference between an athlete and a coach and adding value to people. And so I think that you create your name and recognition from being at the games, but then what value you could add to other people will determine how much they're willing to pay you for it. So that could be online programming, that could be coaching. These could be different opportunities, but you want to be able to scale your abilities. So if you have a brick and mortar location, that's fine. But now if you've created this wide network because of the games, it'd be good to say, okay, I have X amount of followers on social media. This many people know about who I am. How do I add so much value to them that they're willing to pay for my service? And what service am I uniquely good enough at that I could actually charge that for, is the question I'd be asking myself right now.
Because we both agree, just because you're good at CrossFit doesn't mean you show up at a gym. You like coffee, I like whiskey. You're not opening up a coffee shop. I'm not opening up a distillery.
Right.
It's one of those things. It is just really, I've been, obviously in doing this, Kelly was one of the few SMEs from the CrossFit space that just exploded out of the CrossFit ecosystem.
Yeah.
I mean, he blacklisted, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, what he's created, none of the other SMEs in that realm can really touch how big that company is. Look at Miranda and all that, former gym owner, right? And now she's got street parking, and that's, this monstrous 30,000 subscriber thing that they've created. It's just really interesting to see who was able to just take the competitive thing, and it's almost as if that was just like, it was just a stepping stone. Like, I know you talk a lot about, competing allowed you to learn adversity. It allowed you to handle stuff, things you've done in your life. It's just very interesting to me, because I would say most of these guys, all on a level, Josh Bridges has his coffee company, right? Yep. All these guys have now an opportunity when the limelight's on them to get a deal, to maybe get some investment if you have a good idea. I wish there was somebody giving like business lectures to these young guns that are like, hey, yes, you've got the limelight on you now. You're just one ACL away, or this other fucking Matt Frazier 2.0 coming around, that you're nobody anymore. You're CrossFit famous, which isn't really famous, but for a minute, if you can harness it and bottle it, you can
build something special.
You can build something crazy.
You got to surround yourself with the right team. I mean, look at Matt Frazier. He brought on Matt O'Keefe years ago, and they have a great relationship. And O'Keefe, in particular, has done a really good job for Matt. Now, Matt has also done a good job for himself. Like, he is business focused. He's minded in that way. But the people he surrounded himself with have really done a great job of creating a great opportunity for Matt. I mean, look at what Matt has done since he's retired. He's launched an online training program. He's pre-released a book. He's now launched a supplement line. All of these things as soon as he finished competing. So he built up his brand, signed a great deal with Nike, all these different things that he did. And then boom, once he's retired, he now uses that to catapult into these new things. I bet you 2 years from now, you'll see Matt as a much bigger business figure and creating some phenomenal businesses, because he surrounded himself with the right people and he made the right connections at the right time. And I think anybody right now in the CrossFit space needs to be thinking about it. Hey, what's my long-term strategy here? Where am I going? What's my 5-10-year plan? And if the plan is, hey, right now I'm going to spend the next 2 years just trying to win at the games, and anything outside of that is just a distraction, then maybe find a business manager who could take on those distractions, because those distractions won't be there forever. When you're done competing, they might go away. You got to be careful.
Talk to me a little bit about you. Before this, you were able to show me the brand new app that you guys just dropped.
Yeah.
And I know you're super stoked on that. First off, what did you have to go in to get that? Was that funded by NCFit? Did you guys have to take investors? Because apps are no joke. These are not things you turn out with $20,000, $50,000.
Yeah. So NCFit has never taken outside funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is fully funded. So you've got a lot of eggs in that basket right now. Was that was that on the timeline, or was that like a COVID, like, okay, brick and mortar, we're good, we've got to establish, like, do you think you'll open more corporately owned NCFits, or are you guys going to focus, like, the ones we got here are great, we're going to focus on our partners, our license, and then this app?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, for years and years and years, we've been in the app business, as you know, but more from a B2B side. And we learned a lot in the app business. And I think we probably spent on our first app, I would venture to say $500,000. And we learned a lot through that process. And that helped us find the right partner for our new app. Not to say the old partner wasn't, they were okay.
The main lesson you told me is stay domestic if possible.
Yeah. And so we used to have it domestically owned, but outsourced to India. And I don't know if it was necessarily because it was outsourced to India that it created challenges. Maybe it was the time change, maybe language barrier, maybe it was whatever. It's just you weren't able to get coffee with these people and sit down and say, hey, like what's going on? And so now, because our other team is US based and we could actually sit down with them and go over the roadmap, it's just been much better communication. So we rolled out the new app a couple of weeks ago. It's been doing very well. We're really happy about it. I can't, the exact figure on that is, in the hundreds of thousands. I got to figure out, we're still in the middle of building it all together. But the future for NCFit will be allow the brick and mortar, like the one we're sitting in right now, to be the most fullest expression of what we provide, meaning world-class coaching, phenomenal environment. Let's really make these the tip of the spear. But for those people that don't live near one of these or one of our partner locations, let's provide them the tools that we're developing every day in these brick and mortars through online access. That's the theory.
And we can talk very honestly, you and me have been in this game long enough. If you have a single gym and you want to pay people take home money, you are going to be working off some kind of razor thin margins. Like brick and mortar gyms are not going to have great margins as far as that goes. The only way you can make that kind of a wash is if you have other verticals. So if you I've been able to take my gym to a profit margin of almost nil because I have the real estate company on that side. And you can hack things. If you have different verticals, you can be like, all right, well, if the gyms are just breaking even, it's amazing because it's still our place to shoot content. It's still it's the live workhouse. It's the showroom when people come visit. Do you see these other verticals as giving breathing room to the brick and mortar? Because brick and mortar is a volatile sales business. It's an up and down, COVID, no COVID, whatever the fuck. Yeah. Do you see this as gives you guys breathing room to where now the gyms are not as much a stressor as they are just kind of they're great, they pay for themselves, but if we don't make a lot of money on the actual gym, we're able to pay people more because we have these other verticals?
One would say you could have that mentality. We don't. We believe that each location, each vertical, every single thing needs to be able to stand on its own. That we're big believers in that, meaning because you could have your virtual crushing it. Now, if you want to allocate, let's just say we film in here, if you want to allocate $5,000 a month for rental fee, that's fine, right? But this location needs to be able to stand on its own, just like all others, and they need to be profitable and have the numbers to back them up. Because as we grow and develop our partner program, we want to be able to show that there's really a way to make $10,000 a month net or whatever it may be. So although, to answer your question, it's important to have different verticals so that when you do have challenges like COVID or other things, you can have more legs to your table. That being said, we as leaders in the organization look at each facet of the business and they need to be able to stand on its own. So if we don't think this is performing to its expectation, we will spend time focusing on it, because we can't have the gyms losing, let's just say 10,000, but virtual making 100,000. We need these to be able to stand on their own and be profitable enough so we could back it up and it's worth the risk and liability.
Do you have, because obviously each of these locations is a very expensive state to lease from, right? Do you have specific margins you like to see? So I've talked with other operators that once they get beyond 3 locations, single-digit margins, and they're happy. Like if they hit double-digit margins, 10, 12, 15, they're very happy. It's like you look at a bunch of franchisees, Taco Bell's, KFC's, whatever. If they're all sitting at 4%, 8% margin, but there's 20 of them, that model works. Yeah. Do you have targets here with your locations?
We like to see 20% return on sales.
Okay.
So the way let's just say your gym's bringing in, $70,000 a month, right? We like to see that business netting, let's just say $14,000 a month. That is inclusive of G&A and management fees. That's our goal, right?
That's like your retained earnings at the end.
Yeah, because where some people get mixed up is you have 70,000 top line revenue, but then they say the profitability is, let's just say 20%, but that's including the money that they pay themselves and whatever. Yeah. We would say, hey, if this location was just standalone, you had nothing to do with it, right? How much does it cost to run? Anything outside of that is the net profit, and that's what we're looking at, 20%. That's the goal.
Yeah. It's we were talking about on the way down. I was like, my guess would be, especially with the volatility of the brick and mortar, these other verticals you have, obviously, we all believe are the future. I mean, like, even if you don't like it, you still probably realize that this digital thing isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And to be early to the party, which is what a functional fitness Peloton-like app like yours will be, very early to the party. And being early to the party and getting that beachfront real estate is a great fucking place to be.
Try to get that beachfront, bro.
Literally. When you are looking at this, so you guys released this thing just recently. Do you know how many downloads this thing's gotten already?
So we are, let's see. We released it on like 3 weeks ago. We have
right when I had MTV on my podcast, we were talking about it. So
we have about 2,000.
Okay. And what does because early, when you look at things like Net Promoter Score analysis and like early app analysis sheet, like SaaS products, you want to start getting feedback pretty quick off stuff, right? One of my favorite lines in software, and I apply it to business, is with enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
All the bugs are shallow when you get enough eyeballs, and there's got to be like a critical mass. Are you guys already seeing stuff like, dude, this thing is the shit? 2,000 downloads later, we fucked that up. Like, we thought it was the shit.
I don't think we're seeing that. I think we were open enough to recognize. So here was our rollout plan. So we soft launched it, then we hard launched it on the App Store only. So we haven't even rolled out Android yet. Android rolls out like in a couple of days from based on when we're filming this, right? So all we have is Apple. And now we have enough users on it that we're getting some feedback and we're getting some reviews. And so the theory is that we're looking at that feedback. We're saying, okay, we know. I don't want to know some of. I want to know the sum of. Like, what is the overarching themes and what are people having challenges with? And we made an agreement not to make any changes to the content until we received at least the first member survey. So what we're going to do is we want to give it 30 days. Then we're going to send out all the members an email and ask for their survey results and give them a free shirt if they submit it, right? And what we want to see is, we could see analytics in the app, like who's going where, what are they looking at, and all that kind of stuff. But I want to know, hey, this long format content, do you want a bigger clock? Do you want a shorter warm-up, no warm-up? Because no one else is doing this kind of on-demand Peloton-style functional training, and we don't know. We need to hear from people and see what they're thinking. So the long and short of it is, so far the app, it's exceeded our expectation. We're super happy with it. We have things on the roadmap to enhance the experience, but from a content creation, we need to receive more feedback, because otherwise, I'm just drinking our own bathwater. And I don't know. We got to hear from people.
The NCFit app, obviously, each one of your verticals has its own ideal avatar customer, right? Like the collective is B2B. You're thinking coaches and gym owners, all that. When you think about the perfect person for the NCFit app now, it's this more autonomous fitnesser, right? Someone who might be working out independently, garage gym, YMCA, lone wolf. They're not going to an NC partner. They're not going. Is that exactly it? Is that the person?
Yeah, so I'd say for the collective, you're 100% right. It's coaches and owners.
Sure.
Primarily coaches, because they're the ones that pay for it, owners, and then the coaches use it. For the end user app, I would say it's two people. Person number one is really someone like you, or even me, who wants just inspiration for the day, wants a variety of options, scrolls through, sees 4 different workouts. All right, that one looks great. Let's go crush it.
Higher training age, knows how to do the movements for them, not looking for the and then coaching.
Yep, okay. Just wants maybe like a brief video. Okay, what is this skull crusher movement? Whatever. Looks at the workout, maybe writes it down, keeps on their phone, plays music through our app if they want, or uses their own Spotify, whatever, and then they go crush it, right? So I use our app every single day in that fashion. Then you have this other user. And I think in the beginning, where we're starting with is more like the garage gymmer who during COVID maybe used to go to a CrossFit gym, and someone who has like a squat rack, a rower, an assault bike, a barbell in their garage. Primarily, I'd say it's probably going to be 70% male, 30% female. I mean, this is just the beginning. And it's going to be those people who maybe, a couple days a week, they're just looking for inspiration, but a few days a week, man, they're just beat up. They're tired of doing workouts where they feel like they're just on their own. They want to mirror our app to a TV and feel like they're doing it with somebody. They're tired of just doing it alone. And that is the demographic. It's probably somewhere between 25 and 50-year-old, male, female. And they are familiar with the movements, but they want to feel like they're connected to somebody else. That is the initial audience, I would say. But the audience is going to grow, and we're going to learn a lot. Like, for example, one of the first programs we're going to put out is going to be your first 30 days with NCFit. So what we've done a poor job of is, like, if you're not in the functional training space, you go on our app, it is a little bit
overwhelming.
It's like drinking water through a fire hose. Yeah. But that wasn't our initial target audience. Our target audience would be like a guy like you who would look at it, oh, okay, I got it, no problem. What we need to do is we need to make that barrier to entry a little bit lower and say, hey, these are your first 30 days of workouts. Then from there, we develop a vernacular. What's an AMRAP? What's an EMOM? What's a this? What's a that? And then we get them back into our app. So that's an example of things we're shooting for on this next version.
I like it. I want to switch things up. So we're shooting this today. You were leaving and going to Vegas here in a couple hours. What's going on in Vegas? What are you doing?
So my brother-in-law hit his 21st birthday.
Oh, no.
And so my father-in-law is a big partier. My father-in-law loves to party. I mean, my father-in-law parties harder than anybody I've ever met in my entire life.
How old is he?
He's 66.
Doesn't that just make you so when you see like old guys like that and where they still just embody like a 26-year-old?
So my dad's birthday was yesterday, actually. Okay. My dad turned 7 yesterday, and my father-in-law is about the same age. Both came from Iran. Very interesting backgrounds. So they're both very similar. But anyways, my father-in-law, man, he's just like the life of the party and fires it up. So with each kid, my wife included, he has taken them to Vegas, done like a big thing, and then he has like certain like criteria he wants to hit for each kid. He needs to, this for their wedding, this for this, and so this is the final one. He has 3 kids. This is the last 21st birthday, and he goes all out. And so I'm excited to go. It'll be a lot of fun.
That's phenomenal, man. So Vegas, is that somewhere? I was listening to your Tim Ferriss podcast in 2017, and you were taking a flight out to Vegas after that podcast too. You guys were talking about, you're like, yeah, I'm going to Vegas this weekend. You said you don't gamble. But you've gotten into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Do you get into watching MMA and fights now? Like, is watching fighting more interesting for you?
Watching fighting is more interesting for me. I wouldn't say that I'm not a very big sport person watching it, regardless of the sport. That could be football, baseball, whatever. Now that my son's getting more into baseball, I do see myself probably watching baseball with him because he's very intrigued on it. But I've never been a guy to watch anything, unless there's like hype, like, I don't know, like the Mayweather-McGregor fight, like stuff like that, right? But I am more interested in these jiu-jitsu fights because now that I've been in it for as long as I have, you could see the technical, like it's like, when you actually know what's going on, the chess game they're playing at real time is pretty impressive. So yes, I'm definitely more into it. No, I don't really gamble. I'm the guy who goes out there and I say, okay, I'm going to play blackjack. I'm going to throw down $100 and that's my limit. Yeah. And if I keep playing all night, great. Cool. If I don't, I'm good. And I'm not going to allow it to impact my mood. I've been with people who just go there and if they win, they're in a great mood. If they lose, they're in a bad mood, and it just sucks. So I try not to let it impact my mood.
I'm picturing everyone listening to this because everyone thinks of Jason, but they think of you exactly like you are right now. You're rocking your nanos, you got your NCFit on, you're in the gym. What is Jason like? So let's say it's be Vegas night, it's be Vegas, and let's say it's gonna be midnight. Like, what's your drink? Like, what are you like when you go out?
Yeah, so you brought up whiskey. So actually, not tonight whiskey, but a buddy and I just so my buddy makes his own wine and then barrels his own whiskey. Oh, wow. And so I actually just got a small barrel of a whiskey that we are now barrel aged. Yeah. So we're barrel aging some Manhattan. So what we're doing is we did 4 parts whiskey, 1 part vermouth. Yep. We added in some bitters, put in some vanilla, and now we're barrel aging it at my house. So I like stuff like that, right? Like I'm an old fashioned guy. Yeah. I love mezcal. So I'm a big mezcal fan. I like old fashions, mezcal, but if I'm like in Vegas, so my wife definitely loves to go out.
I feel like she probably got that influence. Like you're talking about her dad.
Yeah.
Was she the partier in your relationship? Were you guys both probably at equal levels?
Yeah, no, we're probably equal. There was a time in our relationship that did cause a little bit of friction because I was training so much that I really allowed it to. So like, let's just say for tonight. Realistically, I'll probably be out until like 5 a.m. Realistically. We'll be at the club. We'll do whatever. when I was really competing in CrossFit, there's no way that I would ever do that. And so it started to impact our relationship a little bit, not because of like these late nights, like 5 a.m. That's a maybe twice a year thing, right? I'm talking about where we'd be over at a friend's house and she'd be wanting to have cocktails or whatever. And I'd want to get home by 10 or 11 to make sure I get to bed on time. And it started causing some friction because I was dedicating so much of my soul to fitness, and she felt like she couldn't go out without me because that's kind of weird. But I also didn't want to stay out late. And so we had to kind of have those conversations about what that dynamic was going to be like. But back to tonight, I'm the guy, I'll probably have some like, I'm down to have some tequila. I'm down to drink. I mean, I'm down. Like I used to drink. I used to drink a lot more in high school and college. And then ever since, like, I definitely have wine, I drink, but I'll, like in Vegas and stuff, like I'm down to have a good time. Like I'm not going to be that guy who's like.
You're going to Vegas. It's someone's 21st birthday. You don't want to be that wet blanket in the group that's like, I'll have a spritzer.
Yeah, no, I'll be down. Like it's all good, you know? And tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll go train. I'll go do something. Like, I like to, but I probably like to go out and do party more than what most people would assume I would.
Yeah. Well, you literally AMRAP the party. You AMRAP work. You AMRAP the workout.
Yeah, like I remember one year after the CrossFit Games, I think I took second or third. There was an after party, and at that point, they had some baller games after parties, and I had the medal around my around my neck. I don't know why I had it. Looking back on it, I think probably I was drunk and I thought it was cool. But I remember my wife and I are just on the dance floor, getting down, doing our thing, and like people are super cool, like no big deal, right? Yeah. This person looks over and like gave me like the look, like what the fuck? What are you doing here? And it's just like, we were down to celebrate a good time, and I think that throws people off a little bit because they think you have to be so stringent and whatever. But that's not the way I am.
Yeah, going back to your wife, the relationship part, I got to imagine, because you guys have been together for so long, when you started to pop in the CrossFit space, I don't even know if sliding into the DM was a thing then. How does your wife handle the attention, female DMs, all this stuff? Like, how did that, because that's got to impact, that's got to be a conversation piece at some point where you're like, all right, honey, I think the life's about to change for me. I don't know what's going to happen, but we need to set some ground. Like, how did that conversation go and evolve over time?
It really was easier than people would think. So because my wife and I met when we were 14, there was no social media at that point. And we developed our relationship through high school, and then in college, Facebook kind of came around and whatnot. And then I won the games right out of college. So my first year out of college, I won the games. But at that point, our relationship was very stable. Our relationship was probably the least stable in high school because I was very immature and her dad was very strict. So because of those two things, the toughest time in our relationship was by far in high school because I used to party a lot. I used to go out a lot. She wasn't allowed to. It caused some kind of resentment a little bit. And then in college, things actually got better. But then when we graduated and we kind of moved in together, it was like really solid foundation and has been ever since. So there really has never been an issue with these DMs and stuff. Like I got one yesterday, actually it was from a guy, and the guy's like, "You look hot." I was just like, I showed it to my wife. I was like,
boom. Keep yourself in check. I've got a line out the door, honey.
Yeah. But the DMs and stuff, I can name on one hand those things, and it's just never been an issue. And maybe it's because I'm not, maybe I'm not delivering it out, but I'm not getting it. I'm not getting any of that kind of stuff.
Even like, because you've had the, just like to Eddie Bravo's comment, you've had all these hot, sexy CrossFit training partners forever. I mean, gyms are stereotyped as, I call them 3D Tinders for a reason, right? Yeah. It's just all these people, there's testosterone and sex drive and A-type alpha personalities running around. And I know a lot of men who own gyms, work in gyms, and if their spouse is not in that world as well, that's just a difficult thing to navigate. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not a remote job. It's literally, I'm here with people wwho are literally all day, half naked, and they're literally trying to make themselves more fuckable. Like that is the reason most of them are here. Yeah,
I wish there was some, or I don't wish, but it would be good if there was something more like kind of spicy here. There just isn't. Not for me, not for us. I mean, it's just, I think maybe it's just because from the very beginning, I put out this vibe like I'm very anti, like you won't see me like hugging girls or getting close to them. That's for a variety of reasons, especially from a business perspective, especially being in California. I've just learned from the very beginning, like we create boundaries and guidelines and that's it. And maybe that stemmed from me owning a gym and being the quote CEO that, I had this one moment, this is a while ago, when we first opened the gym, I had a woman who told me she had a major issue with one of our coaches. And so I brought her into my office, and it was a closed door office. Mistake number one.
Without a witness.
Without a witness.
Yeah.
And this woman, this is years and years ago, this woman said to me, she goes, "Hey, I just want to let you know that one of your coaches has been trying to kiss me, wants to be with me, even asked me to marry him." And what I recognized at that point, like, she was completely, not only was she reading the conversation, the situation wrong, she was actually like making it up. Like, it was, but to her, it was her reality. And it was so far from the actual reality that I realized that you have to be very, very careful, because I put myself in a very challenging position. I'm in a closed room with a woman who has a false sense of reality. She had some other things going on and whatnot. But at that moment right there, I said, man, from this point forward, I'll never put myself in a position where someone can say, "Oh, but this person did this," or whatever.
Hearsay, yeah.
You have a hearsay. It just wasn't worth it for me, especially having a wife that I met with such a, and then, you have kids. And so I keep my guard up a lot. And so maybe that's why I don't get many of those things. And it's just not really an issue.
I talk with Kelly a lot about this. He's got a very long-standing marriage, and him and Juliet have kind of taken over the world and the mobility stuff.
For sure.
Let me ask you this. What advice do you have out there? There are plenty of people. I'm one of them. We recently divorced. Me and my ex-wife are still best friends. We've made an amazing daughter, but we were better friends than we were ever going to be parents. We're amazing co-parents. But it's one of those things where now I'm so much more in tune with communication in partnerships now. Even with my girlfriend now, it's just I'm so much more interested. We driving down here, I was asking Isaac, like, so what do you and your husband do? They've been together forever too. And I'm very curious and intrigued. Kelly, he has these weekly check-in meetings that they have in the sauna. So they sit there in their sauna, they sit down and say, "Hey, honey, how am I doing? How are things? I just want to check in with you. I know we're both running at 1,000,000 miles an hour." And I love that. I literally started installing that the fucking second I got back home. What things do you ever, what kind of tips do you have for guys who are in relationships? And we can all just say, maybe all humans, not just guys, we're flawed communicators. But that's the key. Anything that breaks down business partnership, customers, wife, girlfriend, it's a fucking communication problem.
I mean, it's exactly that, right? So, when Ava first got diagnosed with leukemia, one of the nurses there gave us a recommendation to always keep a date night each week. And at the time, I kind of wanted to go tell her to go whatever herself, because I felt like it was a bad omen. This was like the first night she was diagnosed. But it was completely true. Keeping that once a week.
Oh, she said that, guys, while you're here in the hospital, every fucking day, still go have a date night.
Yeah,
even
once
if it's
a week.
The cafeteria or
yeah.
something. Okay.
But this was before we found out she was diagnosed with leukemia. So it was kind of like we walked in, and she's like, the woman said verbatim, "I've seen a lot of families come through here. The key is for you to keep a date night once a week." And that's all she said, and then kept walking. I'm like, it was like but we didn't even.
Good advice, bad timing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Good advice, bad timing.
Yeah.
So since then, we've kept this once a week kind of date night. Typically, it's Thursday nights. That's a good opportunity to kind of talk about adult things. But you're right. The communication is key in understanding your partner. So I know for Ashley, for example, there's things that I probably do, or there are things that I do that I could do better about. And I actually put up a post about this like a couple weeks ago about this idea of love language. And this sounds super fluffy.
You've done the love language text, right?
Yeah, like having a conversation about your partner about love language. Again, this sounds super fluffy, but you need to realize what language they speak in. So, for example, my wife, she doesn't care about necessarily goods. She doesn't care about touchy-feely. She's not that person. She wants to see it through like actions. Like if I clean the house or if I do something with no expectation return, she loves that. Acts of service. She loves that, right? Whereas with me, like it's not quite the same way, right? I want to get physical or verbal,
words of affirmation or physical touch.
Exactly. So those type of things have helped our relationship because you learn what makes them tick and how you can communicate more effectively. And then once you're on that route and once you're doing the once a week check-ins like Kelly does, they're not quite so formal, but they're just on this date night. Those have been very, very helpful. But I mean, the good news for us, Ash and I, we've definitely been through the ringer for sure. And our relationship came out the other side stronger. So I feel like Ava getting diagnosed with leukemia when both of us were like 29, 30, like sped up our are having tough conversations and communicating.
Yeah, it created stickier adhesive. It's
because you got to have it.
Yeah. Do you guys do you ever do any kind of couples there? Do you guys have anyone that you talk to, or you guys just rely on just that day-to-day conversation?
No, so like I had a sports therapist for a long time. Ashley, after Ava got sick, she went through some stuff, and so she had a therapist on her own. But we've never like been to like counseling or anything like that. If I thought that it was necessary, and if I thought there was something brewing, 100% we'd be open to it. Like our daughter goes to therapy once a month because of just some background that she has. And so we're 100% open to it. It hasn't been an issue because we're communicating on a regular basis.
Yeah. I know it's 5 years worth of remission, right? Before they so is she at that point?
No, so Ava got diagnosed with leukemia in 2016. She had treatment for 2.5 years, and then she's been out of treatment now for 3 years. And she's has
10 now, right? Around 10?
She's 10.
Okay.
She has 2 more years, and then she's considered cured. But you know, dude, I mean, every month that goes by, it's like it's like more money in the bank.
Yeah.
And so it's a big deal. We've already made it 3 years. It's a huge deal. And the issues and challenges we're dealing with her now are a little bit different. We're actually dealing a little bit more on the Eastern medicine side versus the Western medicine. So because when leukemia strikes, there was a lot of people that reached out to me and said, hey, have her take 100 milligrams of vitamin C, or do this or do that, go sit in a sauna for 5 hours a day. It's like, I get it. Like,
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But we need to stick with Western medicine in this particular case. But Western medicine isn't perfect. And the chemotherapy, the steroids, the lumbar punctures, all that shit really messed her body up. And so now we're spending some time trying to regenerate some good bacteria, some good probiotics, and redo her gut, because we've been having some issues with that. So we've been seeing some Chinese herbalists, and we're trying to play with that.
Isn't it crazy as a dad or just a male, especially an alpha one, there's some ideas that you're like, fuck that. No way, fuck that. But if it comes to your kid and it could potentially help them, you're like, what's about, I'll read 16 books on it tonight, right? You'll dive right into it. It completely changes. My daughter's 4, and I've got the one. You're half a girl dad. You're a girl dad too. I always, when I get guys on, Kelly's a girl dad. I did Sean Pastuch. What is your advice raising girl? Because your daughter is twice my daughter's age, and she can be an absolute sociopath sometimes. I love her to death, but she's an absolute sociopath. What advice do you have on dealing with daughters?
Oh man, I think it's similar to the way you deal with your relationship with the opposite sex. Because I'm not a girl, right? They react differently to different things, and we need to be aware of that. They have different interests, and that's okay. My son and I have very similar interests, and we act very similarly, so I can understand him easier. I could see when he has too much tension in him and he needs to go out in the garage and get a workout in. All of a sudden you can see, because he has a lot of like male, I can already see it. Like he has a lot of like that kind of pent up, and you just got to go let it out. And he likes similar things. But my daughter, she's completely different. She likes to grow flowers. She likes to bake. She doesn't like to be competitive. And that's okay.
Naturally nurturing,
loving, right? It's just a completely different skill set than what I have. And so you've had to learn how to communicate on that level with her and find things you have in common. So I would say for me, the biggest thing with Ava has been letting her know that I'm there, giving her the attention and love that she needs, because she needs it. I could tell and I never want to be one of those people where she gets older. She craves attention from other guys because her dad didn't give it to her. So I give her a lot of affection, a lot of love on a regular basis. And we saw signs of what she's going to be like when she becomes a teenager, when she was on steroids. So she was on steroids for a couple of years, and these steroids were gnarly, dude. I mean, bro, so once a month for a week, she'd be on these prednisone and other steroids, and she would completely turn into a different human being. She'd be so mean, and I'd be like, dude, why are you so mean? But I knew it was because of the steroids and whatnot. But we got a glimpse into the future of when she hits puberty, and I have to know that those times are going to come, and be understanding and be compassionate, but build a hedge right now. So from the age of 4, like your daughter is, to the age of, let's just say 12, I'm trying to build a hedge where we create a really strong bond and relationship, because I know shit's going to be pretty tough when she gets to, it's going to be tough when she hits high school. Sure. So that's what I'm focused on, is connecting with her on a real level, try and go on daddy-daughter date nights, and, let her know that she's going to get as much affection and love from me as any man will ever show her, because I don't ever want her to crave it from other people, you know?
You got to set the bar. Kate, like, what's the brother sister dynamic like? How are they?
So Caden's 7, Ava's 10. They're good. They're real good, actually. I mean, I don't know
Was he able to comprehend what was happening to his sister when it happened?
Yeah. I mean, he knew. He knew just because kids are smarter than you think, and it's the way that adults talk about stuff. So, like, let's just say we're in a room, and so, you know, we celebrated some of her birthdays, and some, like, just even recently, like a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, we had this, or like 15 months ago, we had a big scare. We thought leukemia was back, and it was actually this other immune disease called HSP, which is super rare. So we're back in the hospital, and Ava has to be put to sleep again, which totally sucks. And you know, he sees this stuff. And so he could tell by when he would come to the hospital. So what happened is when my daughter was diagnosed, my son was like 2, give or take, right? And my parents took him for the next couple of months. And then we would live at the hospital. And so then they would bring my son. And so my son spent some time in the hospital, not as much as we did, obviously. But when he came into the room, he was wise enough to know, like, hey, man, like, there's some times where, like, the tension is as thick as you could feel it. And he knew that by the way people were talking, like, it was very serious. Yeah. So he definitely knew what was going on to the most part. We didn't try and shelter our kids from reality, but at the same time, we never made it Debbie Downer. We just talked real. Like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's the approach. But he grew up fast because of that. Both of our kids are kind of old souls. And I don't know if that's because of what they went through, but they're definitely more mature than most kids their age, right, good, bad, or indifferent.
I saw your daughter. She donated. It was Locks of Love, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is just such a cool full circle.
Dude, I never thought that was going to happen.
That's so fucking cool.
Dude, it's so funny because so Ava loses her hair. You know, that was obviously pretty traumatizing. I think it was more traumatizing for us than it was for her. But at the time, we're like, hey, we looked into a bunch of stuff. So we had, and by the way, when my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, the outpour of support was undeniable. I mean, it was profoundly impactful for our family. She used to love these things called, what the hell are they called? Like, Polly Pockets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dude, we got so many. And these things, you can sell them on eBay and make a bunch of money. I mean, we never did. Sure, obviously, we keep them, of course. But she loved Polly Pockets. And we had so many people send us wigs and send us stuff. But Ava was never really into the wig thing. They itched her for some reason. But when I would always ask her, like, hey, you want to cut your hair? And she'd always say, no. And then I couldn't believe it. She cut it because she wanted to donate it. So it was pretty cool.
I think that's absolutely amazing. Your wife, you talked about this on the Tim Ferriss podcast. The day you found out, obviously your family shows up and people are sad and they're crying. And she said, and you guys said to your family, if you got to cry, that's fine. We get it. Go the fuck outside and cry.
Yeah.
The second you walk into that girl's room, you are tearless, you are strong, you are brave. And that, I've only met your wife that one time when I came to the hotel room in Portland when we did the Iron and Mortar.
Oh, yeah,
and I got to meet her
yeah.
for a quick second, but I was just like, I fucking love that. That's such a boss fucking, like, to be like, Mom, Dad, shut the fuck, climb. If you want to cry outside. But this, and it's such the right move. Is she, everyone knows you're an alpha. How would you describe your wife in that sense?
I mean, she's like a no nonsense. Like,
yeah.
she's, I mean, I wouldn't, she's definitely like a no nonsense type of person, especially when it comes to the kids. She's amazing, love her to death. But she definitely, when it came to that situation, she's like, dude, we're going into a fucking battle and we're winning. I mean, it was just non-negotiable. And that really carried over to the rest of the family. I mean, she really took that approach. And what happens with her is she holds everything in. So here's this traumatizing information. I was talking to friends about it, trying to find a way to cope with it and understand, this challenge. She doesn't talk about it much. She's held it all in and was like, all right, I'm going to be a rock. And at the time it was actually really good. But then after we got through treatment, cause I was like, I mean, dude, it was like 2 years, I'd say, of like kind of like gnarly ups and downs, like just like a lot of uncertainty and a lot of like, I mean, we could talk about it, but a lot of like situations that would make you just on edge all the time. And
just with the diagnosis.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like in particular, like I'll give you an example. Not even like the ICU and all that stuff. Like those things were like, dude, like your heart, I mean, you're going to just throw up on the floor. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't throw up on the floor a few times. Like when you're so nauseous because the fear in you is so high. I've had a few of those moments, but it was more so like, you and your wife want to go out on date night, and then you get a call, like this is when you're at home. Hey, Ava spiked the temperature. You got to come home, right? Boom. And then we had to take her to the hospital. Or, one time we were traveling for work. We had we were in, and this is partly our fault, is that we thought things were going well. And so we flew to Scotland to go celebrate the New Year's. And her and I just wanted to kind of go do our thing. And we had to fly home a day early because she spiked the temperature. Yeah. It's that type of like anxiety. You're always worried that something's going to happen that caused a lot of stress. But Ashley held it all in. She's a very tough woman, and I love her for it. But after the fact, she needed to go see a therapist and talk it out because she would start having panic attacks because she held everything in and never voiced it. Sure enough, she goes to a therapist for a couple of months. Boom, all good to go.
What is she doesn't work. She's a full-time mom, correct?
Yeah, she's been a full-time mom for quite a while.
What if let's say the kids are out, let's say she's got empty nest syndrome. What would she do? What would she work? Would she start a business? What would she do? So she first off, it's nice to see that she exercises on a regular basis. When I tried to push hard on exercise, she pushed back and it wasn't good. When I was just like kind of quiet about it, let her do her thing, it really helped our relationship. That was something I learned the hard way, is you can't push people. You got to let them meet them where they're at. And they know at some point, if they ever want to get interested in fitness, they know who to talk to in their family. Is that you just being a coach, or is that like, I'm Jason Khalipa, I want the world to see me also working out with my partner? What was why would you want her to fitness so much?
It was a couple things. It was definitely the health reasons.
Sure.
And, and maybe it's just because I surrounded myself with so many really fit people that is what I looked at as the byproduct of fitness. And so I wanted my wife to start looking a certain way. And it drove tension in the relationship because I brought it up too much. I shouldn't have. So it pushed her away. As soon as I stopped talking about it, boom, all of a sudden she found it because she found it for herself. She couldn't get motivated by me. She needed to find something that motivated her. And now she's been consistent in fitness for as long as I can remember. But so she hosts an annual fundraiser called Ava's Kitchen, which is every February. This last year we couldn't do it, and she's raised over $1 million for kids fighting cancer. So super proud of her on that. I think that if she had no other obligations, she would want to go and work for an event company. She's super good at planning events. She's really, really into it. And her mom by trade was a travel agent. So Ashley's really interested in that type of thing, right? Like planning, executing, creating a cool event, which is great because she hosts an annual fundraiser. Yeah. So she'd be doing more of that.
That's very cool. I like that. Going back to you, it made me think of it when we talked about me meeting her in Portland. I'm going to kick to that in a second. But with everything you had going on, the fact that the business was doing good, I've unfortunately been on the call end of talking with gym owners who have something devastating happening in the family, and then they have that other monster in the room, which is the fact that the business is not doing well whatsoever.
Yeah.
During that time, because we're not talking a month, we're not talking 2 months, we're talking years of this period. Were there any dips or anything in the business that just you felt like you were fighting dudes on every fucking front? Or was the business like, no, I was able to pretty much, like, things ran well, we were in a good place, and I'm really happy? Because every business hits dips.
Yeah.
Like, was that a period of time where you could breathe on that front, like you really didn't have to worry about the business?
The timing of it was good because a couple of years before that, we launched our first corporate account with Western Digital. And so I was on the road for years, traveling to Asia, opening locations, doing all this stuff. And we generated quite a bit of revenue from this long-term contract. Then the gyms were going good, and we had developed a great team. So when Ava was diagnosed, it really, all things considered, because of all the hard work we had put into our relationships, the business and whatever, we were well positioned for the battle. And the team at NCFit, whether they're still with us today or they weren't, I'm forever indebted to them for stepping up big. I mean, everybody stepped up big, played their part, knew what was going on, and I just gave high-level direction, right? But like Matt Walker, for example, he was the best man at my wedding, and he's also the president of NCFit. He really took that on his shoulders, right, and really like kind of ran with it. And so that, him in particular, but a bunch of others played a vital role. And I'm forever grateful for that, right? Because I could, I talked about this. So I wrote a book, As Many Reps as Possible, years ago. And the first page is an email that I wrote to the staff. And it's actually more or less verbatim to the actual email I sent. But it was just like, hey, my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. it was like 2:00 in the morning. I was fucking crying. I was like, look, effective immediately, this was what's going to happen. I listed like 5 things. Like, we're not doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And then I finished it off by just saying, hey, tell the staff that if it doesn't have to do with my daughter getting healthy, I don't want to talk about it. And, you know, that was probably the case for the next couple of months because I was just really, I took my passion for business and I drove it 100% into educating myself on leukemia. I wanted to become as knowledgeable as I could and be the best advocate for my child. But then eventually, you know, things settle in and you're able to kind of do a little bit of both.
Yeah. Going back to Portland, there was a moment, we both are sitting there with everybody at the speakers dinner.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it's you, me, JP's there, James Fitzgerald, Miranda and Julian, the organizers of the event, and then Chris Spieler comes in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, but Chris comes in. He comes a little late, and I don't know Chris, especially like how you do him, but he felt kind of down. He just kind of seemed like sad, like I don't know, maybe had a shitty flight. I didn't know what it was, and then we were all kind of going around the room, kind of talking, just shop. And if you remember, it got to Chris, and Chris was at a moment in his business where he was in dire straits. I think word for word, he sat there and was like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. We're about to go out of business. I don't even know why I'm talking today. And I remember being rocked, like, oh, fuck. Like, I think of Chris Spieler like I thought of, like, I'm like, this guy, like, he's the man. And then, you know, I think back, I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen any kind of content where Chris talks about business. I'm just making the assumption that things are going great. And I think you had him later on your podcast just last year talking about him buying that building.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there, and that really sunk in for me that there are even the woes of gym ownership. I've experienced them. I experience them now, experienced them during COVID. Everyone's experiencing them. But that hit so hard for me, that moment because he was extremely vulnerable.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it went down or what he said, but I do remember him not being like overly optimistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But now, you know, I mean, I think for him, he was one of the examples of a pro athlete who kind of had to, you know, say, hey, what's our strategy? And, you know, when I talked to him and his wife basically had two ways of looking at it. They could either keep continuing the business and then their asset becomes what they buy for the building, or kind of sell the business and pivot into something else. And I think that I know he's decided to go build his, to go own his property, similar to the way you do. And yeah, I mean, it's a really good example of how there's a couple things as I get older, I'm learning, right? Like, not everybody's crushing it all the time, regardless of what people think. And you might be good in one area of your life, but there's always areas you're trying to improve on. And I think that's very humbling, right? It's one of the reasons why I love jiu-jitsu, by the way. But yeah, that was an example of that, right? Like, he's looked at as a star in what he's doing, but he was also vulnerable and open enough to say, like, hey, I got these challenges.
Yeah. When's the last time you felt like you were on the precipice of failure with some element of the business? Something just, you couldn't unwind that clock and it was just heading down a direction like, oh, I either got to just take the L on this one or I need to pull out some kind of Hail Mary. When was the last time you really felt almost failure-ish or you felt like you were in the realm of failure?
I mean, obviously COVID brought that up, sure. Right? I remember one point, you know, I'm sitting there with COVID, and again, we have an incredible team, super grateful for all of them, but we want to make sure everybody kept getting paid, and proud to say we kept paying, right? Because of the different verticals. But I remember at one point I'm sitting there and I'm like, fuck. Like, it wasn't so much like the money. It wasn't like that the business was going to fail. It was more that I felt like I was failing, meaning like I spent my last, you know, I started in the gym business when I was 16. I opened our business at 21, and I've been blood, sweat, and tears in the company since then. And this virus is going to come in, right, wrong, or indifferent, and just crush. I mean, the location we're sitting in right now, right, had 600-700 active members, and in 10 days went from that to 0, right? And I just felt like, I remember I looked at Ashley, I was like, dude, like this life's work. And again, it's a piece of the business, not the whole business, but it still felt like where we started just got taken out, like the rug got taken out from underneath me. And I had to mentally tell myself, like, hey man, completely outside your control, step the fuck up, don't be a wimp about it, and let's go. Because there's nothing you can do about it. What are you gonna do?
I love your weather here. I hate the politics you guys have here. Like, your governor is I'm not a political guy. I feel like that guy fucked a lot of people.
Wait, but there's $118 million out there if you go get if you get vaccinated, you get into a lottery.
I saw that. This guy's not. And then you in New York
So
City.
French Laundry just drew me nuts. So a non-political statement here. This is just a fact. Newsom goes out there, and this is like months ago, and he goes, "Hey, if you you got to mask up. Businesses shut back down again." That same night, he's seen at French Laundry, one of the most expensive restaurants in the world, no mask in a group. And that was the moment where I said, I can never, ever align with this man purely based on that one thing. Because you come out, you re-shut down our business. That same day, we shut back down. And yet you have the audacity to go do that. It's just, that's not good leadership, right? You got to lead from the front. You got to really embody that. And so that in particular really rubbed me the wrong way.
I don't know who it is. It's Henry Ford. It's Buffett. It's somebody says, it takes 25, 50 years to build a reputation.
10
and it takes,
seconds.
to ruin it. And in that moment, and because you're a guy, you're a business owner, you can zoom out and probably justify or empathize with it. But it's like that pinged you so fucking hard at the time as a business owner in this state where your taxes are already fucking insane. I mean, like, yes, it's an amazing place to live, but when it's not on fire and all that other shit.
Right.
I don't want to do politics necessarily because I hate putting people I talk to in that kind of polarizing position. How did you feel about the COVID thing? Were you more like, all right, fuck it, I'll go along with it, but if it were up to me, I'd just say fuck it. Like me personally, let me do me first. I went with it. I remember having decisions with her and all that about the gym. Like, let's just do what public perception is going to be best for right now. Me personally, I'm very much like, I think we talked about the purge of the gym. I was like, I don't know, the market was kind of a little bloated. It needs a purge, right? I was like, some 4 comorbidity people, like a bunch of people died that were on the precipice of it because they haven't taken care of themselves. I was a little bit more harsh with it, but I did things with the business that I thought would be best public perception-wise. But personally, I remember it was like March, April, May, June. I'd have people over, be like, you feel sick? Be like, no, all right, come on over, hang out. I got to see people. I didn't really ride it. I mean, I would never be a dick and not wear a mask into a facility that asked me to wear a mask. But the second I don't have to fucking wear it, I was taking it off gladly. How did you personally resonate with that?
I mean, it's a tough question. So we shut down here in California like March 15th, let's just say. And technically, we have a mask mandate until June 15th so far, right? Of the next year, technically. Okay, so we still have a mask mandate in place, and we just got availability to open at certain percentages, and we were outdoor for a long time. So in California, we were really shut down. We're probably the most shut down state.
Oh, easily.
Yeah,
you in New York City, but just the density was the problem.
I mean, I'm talking for months, completely shut down. Then you're allowed to do outdoor activity with a mask on. Then you're allowed to do outdoor activity without a mask on. Then you're allowed to go back inside at 10% capacity with a mask on only. And we still have a mask mandate required for in our gym. So if you go into one of the gyms right now, there's a gray area right now where people are like, dude, come on, we're all vaccinated. It's not a big deal. I'm gonna put my mask around my chin as I work out. Yeah. But everybody's been really cool, right? Everybody's kind of understanding. So from a business perspective, we've abided by the rules from state and county since day one. So our goal from a business perspective was never to impart our personal biases on anything, purely stick to the state and local guidelines. And you could disagree with them all you want, but that's the fact, right? And the reason why that was important for us is that our members could poke holes in anything that had our personal biases. So for example, when we were required to shut down, we did. But we didn't preemptively shut down our business because now we're placing our personal bias. Same way, we didn't preemptively reopen. We just waited until the state mandated it. And so from a business perspective, I feel like we navigated it the best way because we have a larger brand. We have a digital brand. We have all these different businesses. We needed to make sure that if someone were to ever say, hey, what are you doing? Saying, hey,
I had to. Yeah.
We're abiding by state and local guidelines. My personal feelings on this don't matter. So that's the business sense. From a personal perspective, I've definitely had my ups and downs for sure. In the beginning, I was like, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm going to abide by it. Then, and by the way, I've always abided by it, mask in locations, of course, right? You're not going to be that dick who just wants
asshole.
Yeah, just to make a big stink.
Correct.
But from a personal perspective, I'm probably more on the conservative side than actually on the let's just let it ride side. And I had my so in the beginning, I was a little bit more okay, we're going to be really conservative because, again, my daughter, because of her immunocompromise, we were a little bit worried about that. And then in California, your perception is your reality. And I think one of the things I learned through COVID is that the media can put a lot of fear into you, and your surroundings could impact the way you feel. Because if you didn't watch the news, and if you didn't see other people like freaking out, I don't know how you would have reacted. Probably fine.
Yeah.
But the media started getting in your head. And then being around California, you'd see people wearing masks just driving the car by themselves. And so it started really impacting me like, hey, am I doing my family a disservice by going out there and meeting with these people? So we were definitely more on the conservative side, and we created this bubble with our family. And luckily, everybody kind of reacted to it in a similar way. My wife and I both handled it in a similar way. We weren't like overly conservative where we wouldn't see anybody, but we surely were not like going out there and meeting new people, and we weren't traveling, we weren't getting on airplanes, and none of that. Because of the health concerns of my daughter, primarily. So I'd say that we were more on that side, but it's been like kind of like a yo-yo, right? Like you're feeling better, and then all of a sudden something happens and you get pulled back. But now we're at a point today where we're good to go.
Yeah, we illegally had to open. I mean, the cash was running out, so we opened up 3 months early, about that, something like that. So we in record sales months, because it's like prohibition. You know, we weren't supposed to be open. I mean, I was getting CC'd every day. I just get a CC on this email to the governor, to the state troopers, to the mayor, Mr. Brower, who owns this building at this blah, blah, blah. This business is open and conducting business. We had sent an email out. We fucked up and sent an email out to like the catch-all email list saying, hey, we're open.
And this person wasn't even coming in. They just want
whatever you want to call them, a Karen, whatever. Someone who just cared too much, had too much time because they were at home as well.
Right.
Just CCing that every day. Coincidentally, the police officers that were in charge of following up with those complaints work out at my buddy's CrossFit gym down the road. So he gives me in contact with him. The guy comes by, just writes us some, but yeah, he's like, there's no money associated with the citation. Now I can just tell her that I fined you already.
Yeah.
And there's no money behind it. Keep doing your fucking thing. Like, they didn't care.
Dude, the cops, it's so odd. It's so funny because twice a week I roll jiu-jitsu with Santa Clara Police Department, right? Or twice a week I roll jiu-jitsu with police officers. And for a while, you were not able to legally, and even actually potentially even right this moment because of social distancing. But it's like, dude, like the cops need to stay in shape. We need to do, but it's like you're operating illegally, but it is the police department. It's just the health officials, and it's just a very complex situation, man, because I think that, I think the whole thing could have been handled much differently.
Yeah. I look at, it was really entertaining to follow on this is Savan. I know you did a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
He's very, very outspoken on this whole thing. He's huge.
And Savan is definitely outspoken on his perspective of it, and he has a unique background. I think for me, living in California, being surrounded by the people I am, I look at the entire thing as like a huge shit show from the government. From the top down, leadership did not do a good job. I'm not talking Democrat, Republican, either one. Just in general, there should have been more consistency across the board, clear, concise direction, and not these like weird, like it should have just been more streamlined. I think they're going to write a book on how COVID was reacted, and they're going to learn about how to react to something like this.
Netflix documentaries are going to be.
It will be, because it needs to be, because you got politics in play. You had one state treated this way, one county treated this way. Like for example, the county of Santa Clara chose to make it mandatory that businesses have to ask their employees if they're vaccinated or not. No other county in California did that, but they chose to do that.
Is that a HIPAA issue?
Oh, dude. But the point being is that when you have one county that chooses to do that and another doesn't, it leads to inconsistencies. I think from a top down, they need to decide, hey, what's the rules and responsibilities here, and how are we going to address it would have been a better approach from the get-go.
And not to stay on the volatile political side of it, but you made me think of it when you said you were rolling around with the cops. Was it cool to be with them during, because I would say the past 18 months for them, if you're a police officer, it's a pretty shitty profession, right? It's a shitty profession generally.
Yeah.
It's a very shitty profession. And hats off to those individuals that choose to take that role.
100%.
If you developed a different relationship, like what was that like rolling with guys? Because I mean, that I got to imagine it's a very intimate, not only act, but then like afterwards, you guys are hanging out afterwards and talking. What was it like here?
I mean, I'm a big advocate for police officers. I think that what the work they do is incredible. I think that, obviously, I think that some of the things that have gone down, right, like George Floyd, all that stuff, incomprehensible, should be, it was not okay. I mean, 100%, right? And that being said, not all police officers are bad.
Sure.
That situation was absolutely horrendous, and that officer needs to get, the appropriate, sentencing for it. But, without police, without some type of respect there, it becomes I'm generally concerned about the future of our police system, because you're not having as many people apply for it because of all these bystanders who are sitting there filming, and they don't get the full picture. It's like how we started this thing with Matt Frazier podcast. You're filming 20 seconds of it, but you don't know the whole backstory of all that's going on and all the good that these police officers do. And yes, is there some racial, yes, there's definitely issues and they need to get addressed. But to say that all police are bad, it's a very, very, and to say defund the police, it becomes a very, very difficult thing, because without them and with making the police, putting them in this perspective, I think can create a snowball effect that a lot of people don't know the byproduct of, meaning you're not going to get as good of candidates to go in there. And then once they are in there, they're not going to act on things as often because they don't want the liability, right? Like,
look what happened in Portland when they took over with Chaz or whatever that was, that like self-run when they took over City Hall down in Portland. I mean, it was an absolute, that was like the mecca of the defund the police kind of thing. But it's, here's the deal. I tell people, not every bad guy is a bad guy, and not every good guy, unfortunately, is a good guy. But it's also the inverse as well, right? It's like anyone else. Nobody wants to be painted with a broad stroke because the minority of people fucked up really bad. There's shitty people at every profession and every walk of life. There is someone driving Uber right now that is trafficking children. There is someone who's a priest who's doing something horrible. Like, there's people at all levels that are doing it great and then doing it poorly. I got buddies that are cops in Cleveland, and never have I read text messages that sounded more suicidal from people I knew that were not going to commit suicide, but it just sounded so fucking depressing.
Dude, the work they do is super important. And, my whole thing would be with people who are like anti-police is try and be constructive in like, how can we enhance this? How can we make this better? For example, I donate a lot of my time to police in terms of enhancing their fitness. I'm not a subject matter expert in jiu-jitsu. I have a good background in it, but I am in fitness. How can I make an impact on them so that their fitness is at a higher level, so when they do respond to a call, they could feel more comfortable in their approach and not have to go to the more deadly weapons because they might feel more comfortable with their abilities? Or how do we get these police officers into jiu-jitsu where they could have more self-confidence to walk into a situation and de-escalate it instead of escalate it, right? Those are things that are within my control to try and help. But this concept of, just sitting there on the sidelines and just kind of berating them and saying that they're all bad, it's very unfortunate, because there are a lot of really good people. And, if something bad was happening to you in your life, who are you going to call? And those people are going to come and they're going to get in harm's way. And if you've ever had the police show up and actually had to support you, I mean, you probably have a different outlook on it than, I think that they deserve more support, and that we need to find ways to enhance their abilities versus just just hate on them all the time.
Yeah. I've seen the post, and we were talking about it earlier. Where is your head going with this, like, CrossFit, functional fitness meets Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? I've seen you bringing that in and merging those worlds. Is that something you generally are trying to mess with? And talk to me about that. What does that look like?
I'm genuinely trying to mess with it. Meaning, so I've been doing Jiu-Jitsu now for about 6 years. I'm a purple belt. So
how far are you away from being a brown? When someone tells you?
Yeah. It's hard to say without coming off like being like that guy.
Yeah.
But I would say that I'm not that far off.
Okay.
Meaning, I'm going to compete in Master Worlds in November, and I wouldn't be surprised if I performed to my expectation that I would get my brown belt there. I mean, again, I could be wrong, and you only get it when you earn it. So it's not something you're just given. But at this point, I've been doing it for a while, and I find that fitness and jiu-jitsu is just a really beautiful combination. Jiu-jitsu and fitness is a beautiful combination. For years, I dedicated myself to be the fittest on earth, but my grappling skills were terrible, or even my hand-to-hand combat skills were terrible. And vice versa. You have guys who are phenomenal on the mat, but their strength and conditioning could be enhanced, and it can improve their ability on the mat. So I'm very dedicated to this, because I find that, here's the thing about jiu-jitsu. The better you get at it, the more efficient you become. It's like a CrossFit athlete who becomes very efficient at like muscle ups or whatever.
Barbell cycling.
Cycling. But the way that they push themselves to do the same amount of work faster. But in jiu-jitsu, the better you get, the less often you redline. It's just a fact. Like, now, again, there's always anomalies and exceptions to the rule, but in general, the better you get, you have opportunities to hold people in position and take your heart rate back down and control them because you're so technically dominant. Good for you. But now, if we could find that same person who's technically dominant and provide them opportunities to redline, how will that impact their ability on the mat is the question. And I think that not enough people on the mat right now who get to a high level redline because of how amazing they are. How do we take them off the mat, find that red line, so when they find somebody on the mat who's similar technical capability, they can keep rolling at a speed they want to, and they can control the match.
So I've had the pleasure. I think we talked about this. I'm such a big fan of the white space. When I created Urban Movement, I looked at CrossFit. I looked at Orange Theory, and I wanted to create this thing in the middle that could stand alone.
For sure.
And during COVID, I had a chance to work a lot of cool gyms. The one in particular, it's named Enduro Method. It's two gym owners that love dirt biking. They compete in dirt bike, but you have to have a special level of fitness for dirt biking. And they started an online program called Enduro Method that is online programming specifically for the sport of dirt biking.
Okay.
And which is really neat. And it's kind of like what you're taking two far ends of the spectrum, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and functional fitness, and who knows, in a couple of years, there'll be a new whatever app that you'll have or some kind of programming kind of thing. In that idea of creating white space, that I was so hell-bent on creating that and following my unique belief in fitness because my biggest fear was if I stepped away from CrossFit and I took the name off the wall, but what I did inside, if I went around with a microphone and I interviewed 100 people doing it and said, hey, what kind of workout we do here? And everyone's saying CrossFit, I had this fear about that. And I was like, I did it. And I know if like in NCFit here, like you guys obviously are, the company itself, in and of itself, has scaled way beyond it. If I brought a mic in here, though, and I interviewed everybody, and I said, what would we doing? Most people probably, Jason Khalipa, CrossFit.
Yeah.
It's just synonymous, peanut butter and jelly. How do you reconcile that? Like, as I'm sure you probably get into, we have licensee interviews that ask us a very similar question. How do you reconcile that when someone's like, you're NCFit, but you're still doing CrossFit?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I would start by saying that I am still a huge advocate for the methodology of CrossFit. CrossFit HQ, the company, has done a lot for me and created a platform for me to build a business off of that I'm forever grateful for. We're going to hold that there.
Put it on the shelf. Yeah.
Put it on the shelf. Over the years, I tried really, really hard to work with HQ to try and create a level of consistency and try and have them understand that the impacts that they did from a brand perspective did have an impact on our business. And at some point we said, hey, we want to be in control of our own destiny. It wasn't that we were anti-CrossFit, we were just more pro-us. So we rebranded from NorCal CrossFit NCFit to be more indicative of the programs we offer, because we didn't just offer CrossFit. We had 30-minute classes, 45-minute classes, corporate wellness, and then also to be in control of our own destiny. We couldn't be attached to a brand that we had no control over. And, since then, we stayed affiliated for a long time, just more as like a tip of the hat. And then because of a certain, few different situations, we decided, you know what? It's better for us just to say, hey, we haven't used the CrossFit name or mark for years. We are just going to unaffiliate and no longer kind of be on that train. My attitude for it is more open today than it was a year ago, primarily because of my personal relationship, the leadership at HQ. I was very concerned of the direction of CrossFit in terms of its polarizing ability. Now that they've kind of calmed down and there's more certainty and the leadership has shifted over, I'd be more open in the future to maybe having conversations about this. But for now, I do believe that a lot of members in here probably still believe it's a CrossFit style gym.
Sure.
And even though we don't use the mark or talk about it or hashtag it, we don't do any of that. It is just part of the perception because of years and years and years of being in the space. So it is something where, we challenge with. We have played around with a bunch of different things about coming out with our own methodology, doing all this kind of stuff, and it always felt unauthentic. So I think at the end of the day, we do functional training, we do strength conditioning here. We have played again with creating our own methodology, but I'm apprehensive to release that because it feels unauthentic and it feels like we're stabbing at something that helped us build this. So even though CrossFit helped build our foundation, CrossFit in itself doesn't own thrusters and pull-ups or whatever it is. CrossFit is a brand. Now, people associate that brand with a certain type of movements and certain type of timer and whatnot. But as long as we're not utilizing the likeness of the brand, we could still be doing functional movements in our gym, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I've reconciled it. I've told people CrossFit owns the word, not the actual workout.
Right.
Like, again, going back to Greg Glassman didn't even, or let's use the Beatles. The Beatles didn't invent the G chord, the C chord, or the A chord. They just put that shit together in a way that was very appealing to many people.
Exactly.
And now everything is constantly varied functional movements at high intensity. And you know what's so funny? Because when I first heard that definition, it was probably 2005, 2006. That was just a mind-blowing thing to me. Constantly varied functional movements at high intensity. Now, that's the most generic recipe for everything in the fitness industry right now, which is why I would love for you guys to dig into your methodology. That was one of the things I really liked with Urban. I took one element of strength and conditioning I didn't see in CrossFit, which is isometrics and tempo. And we just built out, we didn't make new ingredients. I made a different recipe. Nobody owns ingredients. Nobody owns power cleans and running and burpees and all that. It's the recipe of how it's done. Pizza is the same. It's bread, it's pasta, it's cheese. But in New York, it's one way, different recipe. Chicago, it's a completely different one.
Yeah, and to that point, right, like our NC Metcon, NCX, and NC Go programs, if I'm looking at it from like old school CrossFit perspective, it is not CrossFit, meaning we don't have single modality days. We don't do this. We don't do that. And I'm coming from a guy who used to follow .com for years, but then I had to have more of a practical application of it because I own and operated gyms. So a good way to think about the program at NCFit is we've leaned into methodologies we've learned from the last 10 years, but we have a more practical application because of actually being in the trenches here at the gym and seeing what do our members want, bridging what they need with what they want. And our NC Metcon, for example, like we'll never have just, hey, come in for a 1RM and leave. We just won't. We'll blend certain things. And NCX, when you talk about constant variance, even for us, all of our programs are not constantly varied. So where I have a issue or a challenge with CrossFit is this idea of constant variance, because most people don't come in enough to ever create enough adaptation or comfort because they don't get enough exposure to these movements. So let's just say someone comes in 3 days a week and you have this constant variance. 3 days a week, I need them to focus on pulling, pressing, squatting, getting in some basic stuff. So that's our NCX program. And even in Metcon, we might go out a little bit further, but we're not going to go out as further. So if CrossFit Games is the best expression of constant variance, brick and mortar, let's just say traditional CrossFit's like right here, we're a little bit more inside where we want to refine down the movements, not to have as many, so that people can develop more competency in, so they can actually perform them at a high intensity. Yeah. That was my biggest challenge that I saw, right? Is like we snatch like what? We snatch maybe once a week at this gym. But if you program it, we program it in such a way that's conducive to someone who doesn't get as much exposure to it.
Sure. And it's always fun for me to look back. The things that I fanboyed over. I talk shit to all my friends back in the day on some of those. And now I look at myself, I've evolved in what I believe, or not what I believe, but what I prefer from a fitness methodology, things that I like kind of thing. Little things like there was a point when I was CrossFitting and I got so tired of the dropping of the barbell overhead from an audio perspective. But I also I was able to be like, if I press the bar up and I drop it every rep or just on the last rep, I'm missing that eccentric control down. And like this, controlling the barbell up and down, that's also the same mechanics for a pull-up. Maybe if I focus on more eccentrics, my pull-ups will get better. And they did. And like, I just started looking at things like, if I wasn't trying to go so fast all the fucking time, like would the butterfly pull-up exist? Would the kipping handstand push-up exist? And I started just pulling at little threads here and there over the years, and it ultimately became kind of what it is today. What things did you love and fawn over, especially as an athlete? You had to, because these were the fucking movements you had to do. But as a programmer, as an exercise scientist, like, because that's ultimately what you do with your programs. You're testing them on thousands of people every fucking day. What things have you downplayed the value on? You're like, it's not that important to me anymore.
Like kipping handstand push-ups, for example. Like if I never do another pistol kipping handstand push-up or squat snatch again, I'm okay, right? If you do want to do those things, I think there's a way you could do them, and I incorporate them on some days for myself. But as a programming methodology, right, I think living in 3s and 5s is great. I don't think 1RMs are that necessary. Number one, I think that kipping movements, in particular the butterfly, that's fine, but I prefer a kipping pull-up because it translates more into bar muscle-ups. Yep, exactly. I think kipping handstand push-ups, I think you stick with strict because, but for years, I dedicated my life to getting better at these things. And it was okay because I was trying to be the fittest on earth. But now that I've pivoted to what I love to do now, from a programming perspective, we've encompassed that. And then also the practical application. I mean, we have many members in our gyms, but we also get feedback from tens of thousands, if not close to 100,000 members who are using our programming on a regular basis. And we're evaluating, what is success and how do we keep people coming back because they're having fun, they're exciting workouts, and they're not placing our athletes at a position of injury or more likely with not that much bang for the buck. So we look for movements that provide a lot of bang for the buck. Thrusters, wall balls, burpees, box jumps, those kind of things, right? That translate really well. And then we avoid movements that maybe take more competency at a high intensity. We'll add them into the strength or skill session. So let's just say we're working muscle ups. We rarely put those in as 100 muscle ups for time. Sure. We'll never do that, right? It'll be like maybe 2 in a workout or whatever, but we'll put them into a strength skill session because it's fun to work on that. But we do it underneath low intensity versus high intensity.
Yeah. When you de-affiliated, CrossFit, one of the biggest, a lot of people de-affiliated during the Glassman PR nightmare of 2020. Yeah. Not really because of Glassman, it's because money was tight and $3,000 is a lot of money to them. That's what I think a lot of people did. A lot of people did it because they were looking for an excuse, and this was a perfect excuse.
Yeah.
When you did it, did you have the chess foresight to be like, license model down the road? I obviously got to get to a CrossFit then at that point. Was that part of it? I know you and Greg definitely had some issues. I know that Western Digital partnership that you helped create the introduction to and you brought to the table, that fell down. And I know that probably that probably didn't make you feel too good since Western Digital's been such a strong advocate and a partner for NCFit. What was the nail in the coffin for you for getting rid of because again, it's never just one thing, but what was the thing where you're like, all right, fuck it, we're calling it?
So like I said, I mean, from 2016, right, years, we never used the CrossFit mark from 2016 till 2020. Yeah. So for years, 4 years.
Proven we can make money, we can make a business without it.
Yeah, we had never used the mark. And we had continued to pay our affiliation fees as, again, a tip of the hat. But just one thing after another, right? And I talked about this on a podcast with Savon. He was present for a lot of this, where I would set up meetings with Greg and he just wouldn't show up. I'd show up and he'd be an hour late. I would talk to him and he would just... It got to the point where it was very, very toxic because I really cared. I really, really care. And we just didn't.
What did you want those? What did you want to have happen in the meetings? Like if you had it your way, what would have happened?
He would have had more realization that the brand of CrossFit, it needed to have more consistency on the affiliate model, and that the actions that he took and that HQ took had an impact on the individual locations, from a political, economical, like all those perspectives, right? When they would put up a post giving away guns at the games, that impacted our business. When they would go out and go do things, that impacted us. And I tried to share this with him in a very constructive manner. And I said to him, hey, look, we've built this business. We have many members in many locations. I'd love to be able to share with gym owners these things that are like non-negotiables. Like for example, in California, you need an AED.
Sure.
Like just like black and white. Basis. Or like cut and dry, right? And it was more so the fact that I felt like I was coming back to a relationship that they didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I still wanted to kind of pay homage when they didn't want me to really be there. And that was difficult. And then when everything went down with George Floyd and whatnot, it was just a moment in time where, and again, in hindsight, maybe I would have handled it differently. There was a lot of pressure to try and make reactive decisions.
Crisis communication. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very difficult. And our team was saying, hey, we need to make a stand one way or another. And at the time, I feel like there was a lot of people who, we tried to back up our actions with what we were saying with actions. Just saying, hey, look, we haven't flown the flag in a while, but we've been paying. It's time for us to just kind of go do our own thing. And we got a little bit of flack when we rolled out the license program because people felt like that was the wrong timing. Again, in hindsight's 2020. Would I have done it again? I don't know. It's just, we had already had the license program in the works. We had already had that on the roadmap. And we got a lot of people asking for it.
Coming from the collective.
So you had 1,000 gym owners who said, hey, we want to dive deeper with you. And they wanted to have a license program. And then this happened. It was like, well, dude, people want guidance and direction. We could provide that to them. They didn't know where to go. If I could do it all over again, I guess we'd have done the same thing because it gave us a lot of good clarity of where we wanted to go in the future. But in hindsight, I don't feel good about the way all of that went down. It does not leave a good taste in my mouth about how everything occurred.
Sure.
And I wish it hadn't gone down the way it did.
I want to talk about the license model. And when you rolled that out, and we did a podcast relatively around that time in 2020. Yeah. And what are you up to now in licensees?
About 100.
100, okay. So we're at 100 license. Go ahead.
And we stopped promoting it after a month.
Yeah.
And that was really, again, lesson learned from a business perspective is that we had our ducks in a row. We had all of our legal documents ready. We had everything ready. But what we found was that we should have made the barrier to entry higher, and we should have taken our time, and we shouldn't have tried to get more quicker. Yeah. We should have slowed it down.
I think we talked about this. The economic engine for a license model, because you're doing 2K a year, right? Did you think some people took slight, because not only did you roll it out right then, but then you had this low $1,000 less than CrossFit? Do you think that's why some people said oh, fuck you?
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I do believe that anybody who registered for the 100 has received a ton of value for that money. I mean, far exceeding marketing campaigns. I mean, you name it, we're providing it to them. But, right, I've had to have a moment where I said, dude, I don't care if we had 100, 500, 1,000, and we were making money. I want people who are flying our flag to feel proud of where we're going and what we're doing, to be a part of our programming philosophy and the methodology of where we're trying to shoot for, and to be on calls and try and level us up. And that's where we want to go in the future, is to have, even if we only had 30, 10. I just want the right people who want to level us up, who want to push us to be better.
Yeah. Business owner to business owner. When I heard $2,000 in my head, I go, he'll get 100 of these easily. Is that amount of revenue enough to drive an economic engine to assist? We're 600%. I'm charging $12,000.
Yep.
But it was also okay, I'm going to need to shoot for $12,000. I want you to get $10,000 worth of marketing videos per year. I want you to have this of copy ready, and I want you to have this. I want to have the trademarks in place. I don't want you to have to do the lawyer.
Exactly.
And I want to do all that. And 12 was the number I landed on for what I can actually afford to do this with. When you go forward with your license model, do you think it's going to have to be more expensive?
Yeah, absolutely. It will be. It will be changing soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again,
will people be grandfathered in?
Yeah. I think at the same time, we talk about these moments in time from a business perspective, and the ones there's a few in my, probably the only one that I could look back on. I think we rebranded at the right time for the right reason. I think that if from a holistic perspective, looking back at that whole situation, we did what we had to do at the time, but I felt a lot of pressure to make certain pivots when we did. I wish I would have made those same decisions without the same pressures, but the pivot wouldn't have happened unless we had those pressures. So it's a really weird thing, but you could tell by the way I talk about it, that whole situation just doesn't sit well with me. And I wish that I could go back in time and explain to people the why behind each decision and what led to it. I mean, years and years of years with trying to meet with Greg and leadership to try and create this trajectory. And then a lot of on the opposite side, people asking for guidance and direction. And that's what we did. But I think that the barrier to entry should have been higher. Yeah. I think we should have done differently, and that's where we're moving to now.
As we were talking about this on the way up, we're working our asses off. I wanted to have about 5 or so by the end of the year. We've got this one deal working right now with 2 different locations, and they've got upfits, and there's just a lot. But at the same time, I was, I'm like, okay, 12,000, fuck. If I do 12,000 every year, I got to be delivering. And we were even talking the numbers over. I'm like, what if we did 12 the first year? And then, because that's when a lot of the work has to get done, that initial onboarding. And then it's $6K or something. But the thing I think for licensing, for you and me, there's guys like me, there's two brains out, there's people offering business, but that license model needs to have the business arm without fucking ourselves with the legalness of the franchise versus the licensing. Yeah. It's like you're having to just tiptoe around it so well. But there is a very crafty way you can do it as long as it's a take it or leave it thing, assuming they're on the collective, they signed to be a license. If we put up 96 videos overviewing business models and business practices, and you decide to implement that would toe the line legally in the United States. You'd be fine as long as there was no consequence if they didn't do it.
Well, we're going to mandate. What we're going to mandate in the future is branding guidelines. Okay. So for us, the way we're going to do it in the future is we're going to put a larger barrier to entry. It's going to look more like yours. Again, hindsight's 2020. I wish I would have done a little bit differently. We will still take care of the people that helped get us here because I don't feel like that's right. But we will be shifting our branding guidelines to make them more consistent with our other locations because for us, we want to keep the brand at a certain level. And I think we tried. I'm glad we did it the way we did it because I would have always asked myself if we should have done it differently. So now I know that, hey, we probably should have done it differently. Now we could pivot here. Yeah. And they're year-to-year agreements. So it's not like we were stuck with partners or vice versa, right?
Yeah,
and
they can ditch you.
They could ditch me.
Yep.
And so because of that relationship, it requires us to provide value and it requires them to be a good partner.
Yeah.
And we want that relationship, right? And we want to be able to earn it. And so that's where we're going in the future is keeping the branding guidelines the same. So if anybody, so that the big vision from a partner perspective is get as many people on our end user app as we can. Let's just say for the sake of argument, you have 100,000 people. Then underneath the locations page, have NCFit locations. And now we could drive those people into this brick and mortar for a premium experience if you wanted more than just the app, for example. It'd be the equivalent of like Peloton rolled out brick and mortar locations across the country. They'd probably drive some people in.
Without the parent company having to open up all the locations around the country.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So that's the idea. That's a concept. But it only works if you have the right people on the team. And I think that goes from your HQ team to your team across the board. When we get on monthly webinars with our partners, I want to feel inspired and I want them to feel inspired. I want them to be on these calls and look forward to them. I want them to be people who are trying to raise the bar, provide for their families, provide for other people. And I'm not saying that we don't have that today. I just want to ensure that we have that for tomorrow.
Yeah. I've been lucky enough. I've worked with a ton of OPEX gyms. One of my clients right now is Justin and Sherry Tway. NCFit Alpharetta.
Yeah.
I work with phenomenal people.
They're good people.
They're phenomenal fucking people. And it's very cool because I truly believe the future. I believe a lot more people are going to license good ideas in the future, brick and mortar wise, than they will franchise. The barrier to entry is too high, and honestly, I think the franchise model is you need a lot of cash investment to really make that thing explode. The license model, though, if you really think you carved out something unique, even if you have a one of one, you could get one person to license. And if you have two now, the proof of concept and the speed of the fire can catch a lot quicker. I do believe, though, it's also going to have to come with an element of some business coaching that's not required
for sure.
Scenario.
For sure. And where it does struggle a little, I mean, for us, the partner locations, we want them to lean on the brand and where we're trying to go and this idea of effort over everything and really putting in the hard work. And our programming methodologies fall into this category where you could say that they have roots in CrossFit. And that's okay. But it's our expression of them and how we program and how we provide these guidelines that have made our gym successful. Then we can start diving into customer experience, staffing, all the business stuff we can have. So we're creating an online portal that they have access to every tool you could possibly think of. And that's going to be a value add for our partners. And then on top of that, we give them marketing, monthly marketing campaigns, which are really cool because we do all the guesswork for that. So, you know, the partner program and everything we're doing as a company is the one thing that we are making shifts and pivots on. Focused more on how we add value for them, they add value for us, and focused less on if there's ever money transacted.
Is the partner program a separate legal entity, like a separate LLC, or is it all rolled into the same?
The partner program is rolled underneath. We have several companies. I want to say it's rolled underneath the same one as some of our, I think it's underneath our C Corp.
Yeah. So I set up a separate one for it because I want to be able to judge it on its own in that kind of scenario. But also for liability reasons, now that I'm giving advice and having people do things, if you want to sue something, sue that LLC, right? Kind of scenario. It's really interesting because I think, especially as you're saying it right now, coming up with the marketing for them, like all these other bits and pieces, it allows us, let's go back to that quote I said earlier, with enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. Like, you think you've got a good model? Let's get it in the hands of 80 people. Like, even with your locations that you have, right? You've got the corporate locations, you've got the ones here, but I guarantee you're able to find flaws in the system way faster when it gets into the hands of other people.
Dude, one of the benefits that rolling out the partner location, I know I don't want to come off being negative. I want to come off being like, good learning experience, could have messaged it, could have done it differently. And that's just me taking that on the chest and just saying, hey man, like, anyways. But when we roll this out to partner locations, you're right, dude, because you have sales and marketing, right? What are we doing as a business on a monthly basis to drive sales? Are we doing a member referral campaign for July? What are we doing for August? Are we doing a bring a friend August? Are we doing like all these campaigns that we are required to create for our partners per contract, but also just because it's what the agreement was? Now we're using those for our own gyms, which was an area where we would do it before, but now we're more consistent with it because we have to create that for our partners anyways. So now we're looking at it differently. Instead of the requirement being, hey, we're trying to create something for partners, we're going to use it ourselves too. It's now, hey, we are doing a different campaign every month, every quarter, every whatever for us. And now we're just simply sharing it with our partner locations. So it's been good because it's forced us to kind of be more sales forward in our approach as well.
Will you guys have a separate staff, like a support staff for that? Or is it going to be integrating it with people who are already working with NCFit?
In the future, so right now there's definitely outside and inside. In the future, it's going to be even more internal, meaning, so we have Nikki who is the manager for these locations in the Bay Area. Then we have, our design team and our whoever. We're going to have our partners be more of a part of our monthly, like we have a monthly sales call for our locations. Why can't we have them as a part of that, as an example? So basically what we're going to try and do in the future is take what we're currently doing in our brick and mortars, talk about the birds and the bees, what's going well, what's not going well, and just have other people observe and see where we're going and then ask questions and do all that kind of stuff.
And you see the app, people like, let's say I've got the app, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I like go into my garage gym and doing it. However, this workout, I could use a couple people around me to get through that workout. So I'm going to go do a drop-in or have a punch card or a low-frequency membership at a local NCFit license.
Sure. Yeah. That's a way to look at it. That's right. And when you go into that location, though, it cannot harm the brand recognition that you already have. So we need to ensure that we have the right people on the team, because we've built up this brand with you and trust with you. We have great coaching content. The app is super clean. You look at what we're doing on social media, like, wow, these guys kind of get it. When you go to our partner locations, we want to have that exact same experience to the 10th level.
Yeah. And the thing that with at-home workouts, you're able to get more creative with workouts when you program them on an app like the NC, because this has logistics that have to accommodate 20, 30 people, right?
Yeah.
Like there's programming logistics when you're doing group versus when you're writing online programming that someone's going to do on their own.
Yeah. For us on our app, right? What the unique thing about our app is that every day, and this includes the collective, every day, every workout is operated within the four walls of our location. And so we get real-time feedback and feedback for the future, right? So the way that we program workouts, so the people that do the session plans for the coaches, coach classes. The people who write the programs, every workout that gets put out on our program has been tested at least once, sometimes twice. Every single workout before it even hits the app. Then in the app, it goes out to all of our gyms, and that's why I could take a class or have the same workout on the app. And so that I think is unique to us, right? We're not just an online platform. We actually get to see it. We're in the kitchen too.
Yeah. You know what I like about the license model too? There is a ceiling. I don't care. Again, your company is very big, so the ceiling's higher, but there is a ceiling for a GM at an NCFit eventually.
That's right.
The nice thing is if you're a GM at an NCFit and at some point they have a 90-day performance review with Jason and they're sitting down and like, man, I'm my chops, I'm licking them, like I want to do the next thing, they can go open a partner, like they could go be their own, and I mean, what a beautiful transition that would fucking be.
If they want to, and if they're the right person for
sure.
it. I don't believe everybody should, but yes, 100%. Yeah. Another way to look at it is that if you're operating a NCFit, whether corporately owned, let's just say corporately owned, we were talking about return on sales earlier. We want our gyms to be successful, but we don't need them. Like at some point, we want to continue to pay our people as much as possible to have the top talent for our digital side, but also for when people visit our gyms. So we want the best coaches and we want the best people on our app. And so that's what we're investing into because it scales so well. But also when those people who are on the app then come into our brick and mortar locations, I want them to have a phenomenal coach, not a good coach. And so it's just an ecosystem that we're looking to build and keep creating.
So I'm going to get your advice here. As a friend, a colleague, and a successful business owner, I was on it's pretty much the last call with an applicant before we go through the process of their background check and all that.
Yep.
And I've worked with the owner personally, know him very well, worked with him for this gym for a while. So good business relationship. One of his decision makers, who was a new GM, gets on the call. And this was right around maybe like 3 months after the Glassman thing. And her position was, Stu, I don't think we can do this. And the reason being is we just obviously got out of this tumultuous Greg Glassman CrossFit thing. And I listened to a video the other day or a piece of content you made, and it was in this controversial light. And we ended up not going. And we've had to have a serious conversation as a company is how does, Stu with WTF and some of the shit I say separate from that? And ultimately the answer is you can't really, the avatar licensee is someone who's okay with that. Because if you're not, it's not going to be a good fit.
That's right.
But yeah, I wanted to I've bounced that off a lot of the people I've been talking to, like in that scenario where your previous past self or your other thing that you do, they're not down with on that. I mean, like, just give me your feedback on that.
I agree with you. So, like, for example, some people would look at Stu and the name of it's What the Fuck Gym Talk as a little bit controversial. You're a little bit controversial. You're a little bit more in your face. I, in particular, I'm just not that guy, right? And there's pros and cons to it, right? So, Greg was Greg, and he was who he was, and you can either love him or hate him. He never said any different. And what I always found impressive about CrossFit, and I will say this to his face, they never promised you anything.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really powerful. You're paying for a mark. If you get value, keep paying. If you don't. But we never committed anything to you. And so I thought that was really valuable because they never overcommitted and underdelivered because they never overcommitted. They never committed. I think for you, it's something you're going to have to work on with or discuss with where you want to go in the future. Because yes, rightfully so, especially after what happened with Greg, you are always going to be linked to your gym.
100%.
And so when you go out on your podcast, and even if you're talking about COVID or law enforcement, if you want to have these conversations, and even the way I navigate these conversations, I'm just not that controversial.
Sure.
And I think people who get associated with NCFit know that I've had a 10 years of track record of just not being that controversial dude. The most controversial thing we probably did was de-affiliating from CrossFit when and I still don't feel right about it, right? But we're not very controversial, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't be controversial, but at the same time expect people not to, you know what I mean?
100%.
So you just got to decide where you want to fit.
She said, as soon as she said that, I was like, that's such an amazing question. Like, I applaud you for having the conversation. Because that's something, they would have had the Zoom call with us and then behind closed doors, like, I don't know about this. This might not be a good, but she had it and we had a good open conversation. And again, it's probably just not the right fit, but it's so interesting because guys like you and me who make content, and sometimes, you say stuff and it's just like, am I ever going to regret that? Because once it's out there for fucking ever.
Right.
And we've had this conversation ad nauseum frequently because there is an element to this thing that's out there that someone could find, but it's probably just not a good fit for that person.
Yeah, but I also you bring up a good point because like cancel culture and just this stuff and stuff getting taken out of context, right? That's why I actually like long form, because if someone actually sits and listens to it, they can hear the way we're just talking about stuff, and that it's not so like a 10-second social media clip where you're trying to invoke, one of the challenges of social media these days is that it benefits the person that is as provocative as possible, right? That meaning if you put out a post that's pretty conservative, the algorithms don't like it. But if you put out a post where it's whatever, super controversial, it'll get more likes and more attention.
51% will love it, 49% will hate it. That's more.
That's right. And so, for me, I've chosen that although I could intentionally be more provocative or whatever, like more inciting, that's just not my personality. And so I'm choosing not to do it. But if your personality is you feel comfortable about these, then I think you are who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's great.
Yeah, you got to again. It's a self-awareness thing. You've got to accept it and be like, this is it. And I think you said it earlier when we don't want to put out our own. It would feel a little unauthentic. I think the one thing that's at least really nice when you're authentically Jason or authentically Stu, whether we're just talking like this and that red button's going on this recorder or not, it would probably sound exactly the same. I remember even the first time I flew out here, I remember hitting you up on the phone. I was like, hey, by the way, I want to shoot this content, whatever. I don't know if you ever see my shit. It's just it's a little bit more controversial. I wanted to make sure not to blindside, oh, great, I had the fuck you guy over here.
Yeah.
And I remember just giving a quick little, courtesy call, that kind of scenario. And I think that's the beauty of this thing is that you can, as long as you're still authentically you through and through, and there's not a moment where you're sweet, loving, overly, you're on this side, and then you come on over this side and you're just fuck for clicks, right? That kind of scenario. I think it still plays through beautifully, and the right people find you.
Yeah, because your audience gets that. For example, I did a podcast with Savon, and he's a little bit more on the controversial side than I am, right? But that's okay because he's consistently the way he is.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be the same way that I am. And that's the benefit of this thing, right? We need, one of the things that I am worried about as society gets more social and whatever is that we're gonna make it impossible to have constructive conversations because everybody's gonna want to walk on eggshells and never say anything that's challenging the status quo. Now, do I think that there's a way where you could challenge concepts and ideas instead of just belittling people? For sure, right? You got to challenge a concept, but that's why we move forward as a society, and long format is a great way to spark concepts and ideas in people's heads, like way you talked to Juliet and Kelly, and it created an idea. But those ideas don't necessarily come as often from just Instagram 10-second clips. And
then I remember calling you and telling you, and then I remember hanging up and thinking, what am I fucking worried for? He's friends with JP.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I actually want to bring up JP. I haven't talked to him in a minute, but one thing I'm most impressed on, you guys started the Box to Business, the nonprofit, which most people maybe they do or do not know. You guys would go around, and when you'd get a good stage like a Wadapalooza or a ballroom in a Marriott or whatever the fuck it was, and you guys would put on these cool free business clinics. And that was early on when there wasn't a lot of that at scale.
Yeah.
Kind of scenario.
So just
Sure.
to correct it. I don't believe we ever made them free, but we never made any money on them.
Got it. Okay.
So
or you took
yeah. So
okay, got it.
So I don't believe, and I'm almost 100% confident that there hasn't been a single Box to Business that either one of us has made any money on. I'm very confident with that. Actually, we either donated the money or we spent all the money on the event to make it really badass.
And the reason I bring up JP, you mentioned earlier, your best man in your wedding was also, he's high up in the company. He was running the show while you were, dealing with your daughter's cancer and all that. JP's a guy that you've had a long-standing relationship with, and you've brought him into the NCFit, into the partner program, correct? Yeah. Talk to me about that, because your network is your net worth, right? We've all heard that cliche line kind of scenario. What is it you see in a guy like JP? I mean, I see amazing things, and he's one of my favorite people. What is it you see in a guy like JP? It's like, I got to keep this guy in my ecosystem, because he suns down one of his brick locations. He's moving to Nashville. He's got a kid now, and it's like, I want you to be a part of this thing. Talk to me about him, because he's such an interesting dude to me.
JP's been a really good friend. So, back in the day, some people would think he was a little bit more controversial too, and he had kind of opinions on things and whatnot. But man, when you get to know JP, he's one of the best human beings ever, dude. I mean, I'll put it in perspective. Him and I have either had a work relationship or a friendship for, years and years now, probably 8 years, whatever it is. We've done a lot of business together. Never once have I felt like he was uncomfortable about money, took advantage. He was always down for the cause. We would go do an event, I'd be like, hey man, I'd really feel good if we could donate this to pediatric cancer. Never, it wasn't even like a hint of like, it was a lot of work. So it's like, done, dude.
Yep.
All good. And that's the kind of guy he is, right? He's down for the cause. He wants to improve people's lives. He really wants to make an impact. And so that's why we brought him in for the partner program. We've had a great relationship ever since. And I think he's really good for the partner program because he's willing to take a lot of calls at gym owners and really try and support from an organic perspective. He's owned and operated gyms himself, so he kind of knows what's going on. And he's just a really good dude. So, yeah, I love having him.
What is his role with the partner program?
He leads up the partner program.
Got it. Okay,
yeah.
So he heads that up. I need to reach back out to him. I get to go to Nashville again here soon, and I remember I did one interview with him when we were there in Portland, and I've maintained contact with him. But he always just is one of those guys that I felt like, even though he kind of stepped out of the brick thing, I just thought he was like an what would you call it? A undercard. He knew so much about the business. And when he talked, I was like, God, this guy's so smart. How come he doesn't have 3 podcasts?
Dude, it's because before he got into CrossFit, he was into the fight game.
Yeah, correct.
And so he had fight schools.
Yeah.
And so he learned a lot through that. And he's just had a lot of reps under his belt for sure. And then he, founded Brick, and he's gone through that. And, now he has a baby.
That you guys both spoke there, or was it like, hey, would they book you and be like, dude, you got to get JP too? Or was that just a coincidence?
I'm pretty sure it was I don't remember exactly how it went down, but wherever JP goes, I'm down. If I go somewhere, he's down. We just have a good relationship, right? He's one of the unique people in the fitness space. I mean, I've made a lot of really good friends through CrossFit and traveling the world. Met some really cool people, but he's definitely one of them.
Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore if we're talking like business
games?
People? Well, no, not games. No, I feel like you probably been asked that on a podcast before, at least somewhere. No, like business people, not even within our industry, but like people that's come into your life or that you've learned from, even if you've never even met them. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore of like, these guys have helped probably my psyche as a business owner more than anyone?
I mean, Joe Gigantino for sure.
He was the original owner of the Globo gym you worked at.
Yep. I mean, like 10,000-fold, right? Yeah. Because he taught me really valuable business lessons at a really young age. So I would definitely say him. There's some business mentors in particular that have spent a lot of time with me for no financial gain that I really admire. There's one guy, Gerald Cagle. He's probably the world's most interesting man. And one day I need to do a long format podcast with him. This guy has had every injury in the book. He just naturally just gets hurt all the time. But he makes he's very successful financially. He's the head of sales for Western Digital.
Okay.
But he just takes the time for me to really just kind of calm me down, create good vision. And so he's been very, very instrumental because he's also owned dance studios.
NCFit client? Like, is that how you guys interacted first?
Yeah. So at first he was a head of sales for Western Digital. So that's how I met him. And then
how did you get in contact? Like, you just show up at Western Digital by external hard drive? Like, how did you guys meet?
The president of Western Digital and I met. This is like years ago.
Okay.
And then at the time it was called actually at the time it was Hitachi. Then Hitachi was bought. This subsidiary was called HGST. Then HGST was bought by Western Digital, and now Western Digital bought SanDisk. It's a whole slew. Yeah. But anyways, so I first met a gentleman named Mike Cordano. Great guy. Really helped us out big time. I mean, he's done a lot for our business and for me. And through him, I met Gerald Cagle, who's been a phenomenal business mentor for many, many years to refine down, simplify. And so him, along with a guy, Paul Gomez from, so he was one of the founders of Progenics, but he was also one of the co-founders of Hurley. And he really helped me at some instrumental times, guide the ship as well. So like guys like that have been really helpful. People that a gentleman, Sal Frizella from First Form. He's been, him and I, we talk on a regular basis about business. Bedros from, Fit Body Boot Camp. Yep. Definitely talk to those guys. But I think at a high level, it's these guys on a regular basis, and then our internal team that I talk to regularly.
Do you ever still keep in any contact? Because I know you did the thing with Gary Vee, and that was such a cool moment. Yeah,
it was a cool moment in time. It was great. I don't really keep in touch as much, and that was and you and I have talked about that before. That was me realizing that that was a cool moment. He is exactly who he is. It just You know, we have he has other things going on. We have other things going on. And I haven't been back out. And if the opportunity came up, I'd love to go see him.
Yeah. I want to cut. You mentioned earlier you watched the Logan Paul Mayweather fight. What do you think?
I watched a part. No, so I was actually talking about Mayweather versus McGregor.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That one was super exciting.
Yeah. Did you watch the Logan Paul fight?
I didn't really watch much of it. I saw some clips of it.
Yeah. Social media, right? That's where where I was going with this was social media can create and put someone where their second professional boxing match is Mayweather. I mean, that's what that kid has created. You know, whether like him or hate him, or if you don't know anything about him, he started on Vine, 12-second videos, and now he's a fucking YouTube gazillionaire, and he just fought Mayweather and made $10 million doing it. Social media was something we talked in one of our last conversations where you're like, and again, 2020 was a year I think everybody was over social media at that point. But you're like, I'm fucking over this thing. It's a drain. It's tough. I know I still have to do it. My team still wants me on it. I remember you sent me a text one time. You're like, hey, my buddies want me to start doing some more social and stuff. We were looking at your shit, and I was like, you mentioned community. You're like, I'm gonna start fucking with the text app. And then me and Miranda get on Clubhouse a couple times. Like, where are you at now with content and social media?
A great question. So I tried community as a text platform. And so community as a text platform, it's like Invite, right? But it's $100 a month. So it's not free. And I started promoting it and building it up. And then it wasn't sitting right with me. I mean, this is like, I did it for months, like not like weeks, months. It felt like I was just forcing it. And so
your communication with the list?
Yeah, it's just like, dude, it's like, again, it's like a text message. I don't really have like one-liners that I'm trying to send people.
Yeah.
Like, here's a workout, go get after it. Like, I'd rather just sit and share insight.
Sure.
So it just wasn't the right platform for me. Although I think it has value for other people, for me, it wasn't right. So we're canceling it starting next week. And I'm just going to send out the last text like, hey guys, find me on all these other platforms, listen to a podcast, whatever.
Sure.
I thought Clubhouse was a cool concept, but where I struggle with Clubhouse is there's just a lot going on.
So busy.
It's very busy. It's hard to kind of like track it.
Yeah.
And
you've been using something else. What's the other one you've been using? I've seen you
Stereo.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that's with Andy Stump.
Yeah.
So Andy Stump's just been inviting me to like go do these podcasts, and so I've just been like, all right, cool. But that's kind of his thing, not really mine. I think for me, it's like, hey, let's try and do Instagram as well as we can. And about 4 days ago, I started on TikTok. Now I know that sounds fucking crazy, right? So I'm with Mark Bell and his team. And they're like, dude, you got to get on TikTok. I'm like, bro, dude, come on.
Don't add that to my plate. Yeah.
Dude. They're like, dude, TikTok is the first thing that you could put up organic content, and it shows more people than actually follow you.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what, dude? I will try once a week for the next couple weeks, and I'll just have fun with it. Second video gets 150,000 views, right? And now I'm up to 2,000 followers in a week. And it's interesting because on Instagram, you can have hundreds of thousands of followers, but the social channel only shows it to X amount of people. Whereas TikTok, you could have very few followers, but it shows it to more people. So I am curious how that platform will work out, and I could repurpose content from Instagram and just do it a little bit differently on TikTok. So right now what I'm really focused on is Instagram and trying to be at least active on it, and then dabbling in TikTok once a day. I'm trying to do both once a day. And obviously we have the podcast, but it's nice now because I actually have a product. If I could go back in time, I would travel the world and I would sell T-shirts. And there was a way for people to engage with NCFit, or at the time NorCal CrossFit, which was buy merch. And our merch was doing great. But I wish that I would have had something that there was a call to action to be a part of our community, which would have been an online platform, whatever it is. Now we have that for the end customer, which we didn't really have before. So it's inspiring me to continue on this social platform because we're seeing more and more users come directly from social media.
So when you look at TikTok, are you looking more, are you just taking the videos and the concepts that you're doing on Instagram and then slapping them on TikTok? Or are you actually like, no, I'm going to try to do this trendy song thing?
No, so like I used to think TikTok was just like dancing and songs. It's not that. So
there's a lot of tutorials. There's a lot of educational stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of tutorials, a lot of educational stuff. And so that's what I'm working on, right? I'm doing more of that. There's no dancing, it's just a lot of movement and that kind of stuff.
Is it more fitness-based or business-based?
All fitness-based.
All fitness-based?
Yeah.
Now, for someone who, again, I feel like we're pretty much the same age. We're not old dogs. We're elder millennials. Like, we're elder millennials. Throwing TikTok in, I've had the same reservation that you have. I'm like, bro, come on. I'm just like, I'm trying to, why? What extra appeal does it have? Like, what kind of content can I put there that I couldn't put on Instagram? Right?
It's the fact that
it's the reach for you.
It's the reach. It's the fact that I started with 0. I have not promoted on Instagram once, and that I have 2,000 followers. And I know that 2,000 is not a lot.
Sure.
But here we are a week in, and that was all organic new followers.
Yeah. I get the other thing too is, for someone listening, I'm always just thinking like the devil's advocate on this is like, well, what if those 2,000 were already following you on Instagram? And like, again, right? But it's a new thing. Why not give it a go? Like, just like you gave Community Go. Gave it a good fucking run. You're like, yeah, I liked it. Then I decided it wasn't for me. You do the same thing with TikTok. Because there are gym owners that'll listen to this, and I've got guys that like, should I do TikTok? I'm like, bro, we lost $3,000 last month. No, don't get on fucking TikTok.
Yep.
That's probably not the place you need to be. That's not what's going to fix the business. For you, when you think of allocating that, because again, it's not like TikTok's a brand new platform. What was it that Mark or his team said? Like, what was the thing that pushed you? Was it just a peer referral?
I saw Nsima. So Nsima is one of Mark Bell's guys.
Okay.
I saw him get on TikTok. He showed me. Like, dude, it was wild. He's probably been on TikTok for a couple of months, and he has a couple 100,000 followers now. But he's gotten a few videos to go viral, and he gains 50 to 100,000 followers. It's very interesting the way you could gain followers on it. So for me, for our business, because I need to be out there doing things.
We have a new digital product.
Because we have a new digital product, it makes sense. But if I'm a gym owner out there and our business is mediocre, I'm going to focus on going and knocking on businesses' doors, creating local engagement, all that kind of stuff before I think about creating TikTok content on how to do a squat clean.
Yeah. I would want to push them kind of like when I came on your podcast, pushing towards, if you're going to do content, push them towards a podcast or something that is quicker, longer format, or something that allows you to talk to customers or whatever it may be. Let's talk about that in that front on the content creation side. Your podcast game has evolved over the years. How are you liking podcasting? Obviously, I love the fuck out of it. I travel all the way out and do all this kind of stuff. Where are you at with it? Is it something, has it gotten to the point where you're like, all right, I got to get that one out? Or do you love that? Because you have always had a good monologue. Not a lot of guys that do what we do have a good monologue. You're able to go ahead and, I remember when you were doing your coffee with Khalipas, those were just great 4 or 5 minute pour over duration monologues.
I think that I'm building back to a better place with it. So here's what happened. We started Business of Fitness, which was all about the business of fitness. And it had a lot of gym owners listening to it. And I wanted to talk about something other than business. So we started AMRAP Mentality, where it was all about athletes. So we got all these top athletes on it, but it was once a week for Business of Fitness and once a week for AMRAP Mentality. And we're trying to run a business. It was just too much. It was too much of an obligation for me, and I couldn't do it well. So we stopped doing AMRAP Mentality because it wasn't something that I wanted to travel and go meet with these athletes. I don't know. I wasn't prioritizing it enough. I wasn't doing it a good justice. So I just said, hey, I'm stopping it. This thing was stressing me out on a regular basis, and it was my choice to have it. So let's focus in over here. So then Business of Fitness goes well. And, we did it for let's just say, we're like a couple of years into Business of Fitness, and it goes well, right? You're getting good downloads and your business, whatever. And it probably helped to build the NCFit Collective. But at some point I was reflecting, I'm like, dude, I just feel like I'm like regurgitating the same stuff I've already said. At this point, and I got the inspiration actually from Andy Frisella, where he changed his podcast from the MFCEO podcast to his new podcast because he just said, dude, I've said everything I got to say. I'm ready to move on. Same thing happened with me. I feel like, man, if you want to talk about anything, the business of fitness, we got you covered, dude. There's 150 episodes on that. So we rebranded to Effort Over Everything, which is kind of our new rallying cry as a business. And that will be more of encompassing of AMRAP Mentality with Business of Fitness, where I could talk about things like on Monday, I'm talking to a guy about coffee. I'm really interested in it. But whereas this last episode was with Noah Olson, and it could be more of AMRAP Mentality focused. Or maybe you come on in a couple weeks, we talk about business. Yeah. And it allows me to talk about anything I want without being pigeonholed.
Yeah,
and
you're
so
not siloed.
I feel like I'm rejuvenated right now, and I'm excited about the Effort Over Everything podcast because I just am.
Walk me through your creation workflow. So if you're like, are you spontaneous where you're taking a piss and you're like, oh my God, I just came up with a great TikTok. I'm going to go shoot that as soon as I get done. Or like when you think of the topics for your podcast, like do you have a dedicated, like I'm going to sit down and I'm going to kind of plan out what I want to do content wise today, tomorrow, this week. Walk me through like your creation workflow in your brain. Some people are very plan with it, and some people are very spontaneous, and they both work.
I think for me, I got to get better about this, but when it comes to content creation, I'll come into the gym. Traditionally, I try and keep it as authentic as humanly possible, right? Like I'll never share a workout that I didn't just do, ever. Like never once. And so I'll do the workout, but now I'm more actively engaged. I'm like, okay, I got to film it. Let me make sure I film this workout. Let me look back on it. Was there any good parts of it? Okay, maybe after I'm done, like, all right, let me go ahead and now like just do different parts of it, right? So like let's just say the other day, my sister and I were doing a workout in her garage, and I didn't film the workout, but then afterwards I'm like, hey Angela, let's do one round of this. I'm just gonna film it. We had done the workout, but then we recreated it for social media, but I'm okay with that because we did the workout.
Sure.
So that's actively trying to think about it after the fact or during it. Or some days I'll come into the gym and I'll just say, hey, I really want to talk about the muscle up today. I really want to, or I'll have our coaches here like every Wednesday, like I was saying, we film. I'll be like, guys, what are you seeing in the gyms that's kind of interesting to you? Let's talk about it. And then we'll have a good conversation about, I'm seeing this as a good challenge, and then we'll work on it. But I don't just like sit in the beginning of the week and say, hey, on Monday I'm going to do this, Tuesday I'm going to do this. It's more like authentic that way.
Do you have any, when someone creates content organically, like really, really well, especially like an employee, you see someone who's maybe doing it on their own, do you see them like, oh, fuck, like MDV, like I saw the evolution of that guy into his show, and I'm such a big fan of what he's doing. He's such a great dude. Did you like recognize, because you obviously had him on the show, and he was a co-host of yours with the Business of Fitness, and you guys would jam. And then from my understanding and in talking to him about this, it was kind of like, okay, you guys kind of gave him the blessing underneath the NCFit umbrella. Take a run with the intro. Like you do well at content. Are you like, actually, let's just stay on MDV. What was the recognition there? Was it just that he was that good of a co-host, or were you watching him do something else on his own? You're like, bro, you need to be talking to people yourself.
So MDV, Matt Della Valle. This is a very interesting situation for me. So first off, Matt is an incredible contributor to NCFit. We love him. He's our chief fitness officer here. He's done a phenomenal job developing our coaches and being a part of our team. When he first came on, him and I were talking about social media, and this is something I've had to reflect on a little bit, and it's not like a big deal, but I remember when he first came on, I asked him a few questions about it, and I was apprehensive about him and his social media relationship. This is like 3-4 years ago.
He was anti.
Well, he wanted to be, I remember he came to me, he's like, I want to be more present on social media. I just asked him like, why? And I think he thought of it as like, hey, it's kind of my show. I don't want you to kind of like steal the thunder of NCFit. And that was probably my fault. Subconsciously, maybe I let him think that. And that was a learning lesson for me for sure. But really what I was trying to instill, and I probably didn't communicate this effectively, it's my fault, not his, was that like if you don't have a strong reason why you want to be on social media and you're just going to do it, it's going to fizzle out and you're just going to start it and fizzle out again. But I think the way he took it was like that I didn't want him on it because I didn't want him to be a conflict of interest with NCFit. So in hindsight, I should have done a better job communicating that. But I think what happened is over the years, he found that why. And what his why became is that he didn't want to have regrets that he could have done more for NCFit and for himself through social, adding value. And that was when him and I have that conversation, it's like, dude, we got to go on this. So I guess that answer is before one of your team gets on social media, they need to understand like, hey, what is the vision for their social media? Why do they want to be in the first place? And then are they going to be sustainable and stick with it? Because then that's going to be a great platform. And over the years, I've had to humble myself and realize like, dude, I don't want this to be the Jason Khalipa show. I want to elevate people like the MDVs of the world, or like our other team that created their own Women Making Waves podcast, or like these other people, right? Because NCFit shouldn't be Jason Khalipa, because then we just have a hobby and not a business. It should be more than that. And we've been trying to be as supportive as possible with MDV, and he's done an exceptional job of being very consistent. And if anything, he's our top influencer for the company. Like besides myself, for sure him. And looking back on it, I wish that I would have handled the situation a little bit differently with him when he first came to me about it, because who knows how that would have catapulted it. but this is how we got here now.
Do you think it's important for a gym owner if they recognize, because that's one of the hard things, you get some great coaches, but most micro gyms cannot, they don't have a social media department. They're not paying someone a separate salary to be making content, right? They're trying to capture it and create it as they can. Do you think that's a skill set now in the micro gym scene where you have a GM or a head coach, like, we got to talk about social media, not only execution, but ethics, hygiene, all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, look at, taking MDV as an example, though. So he chose to kind of start getting Instagram in particular. We didn't give him any guidelines or direction.
His post-it, that's his idea.
Yeah, but that's his thing, right? And the podcast, that was his idea too. And basically the way the podcast kind of came around is like, this is the way I gathered it. Like, hey, dude, I'm going to do a podcast. I'd like to do it with NCFit, but if not, like, that's okay too. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, it wasn't like forced from either of us, right? Like, it just worked out great. And he's been, it's good for NCFit and it's good for him. So perfect. But he took on the whole Post-it. He took on his own social. He finds his own guests. He does all that work for it. So it is a lot of work for him. And we're really, we're blessed to have him at the company because, to your point, whether you're a GM or a coach or whatever, I think two things have to happen. Number one is, why do you want to be on social media, and what is your message, and what are you trying to get across? Like, what is your goal of it, right? And then secondly, how are you going to find a way to allocate the time necessary to stay consistent at it? And MDV's done a great job with both. But I think some of our staff, for example, they don't have a good relationship with social, and that's okay for us too. Like, we have one woman, her name is Emily, for example. She canceled, she deleted her Instagram. She doesn't want to have anything to do with it, but she's one of our best follow-along coaches. So she's talking to me like, hey, do I have to be on social media because, like, to deeper engage the audience who's doing follow-along workouts? And I say you don't have to do anything, because if you feel forced, it's going to come off unauthentic and just be weak.
People see through it.
Right. Just do you. Yeah. And if you want to go on there and just share your workouts and whatever, that's fine. If you want to be more in-depth, that's fine too. But she hasn't decided to get on, and that's fine too.
So I don't know if you've thought about this. I have gyms I'm working with, and very similar. They've got a charismatic coach, someone who wants, hey, I want to start my thing, but can I do it under the gym's umbrella? And the gym owner's same position. Like, yeah, no, absolutely. And then there's scenarios like, well, what if it starts doing well, and let's say sponsorship dollars come in? Is the parent company getting a cut of that? How would you address that? Yeah, and that gets a little awkward. I think for me, our people, like our team, like Women Making Waves and MDV, the intro podcast, they know that, like, my philosophy on paid ads on the podcast is that I'm not really for it, because it comes with an expectation. That being said, if they're expectation is like what kind of content to put out, or like
an expectation on both sides. Like, it started making podcasting not fun for me. Okay. So I'd have to be like, all right, this episode is brought to you by whatever. And then if they're not getting ROI on the $500 or $1,000, whatever they spent on it, then I'd feel bad. And it started putting pressure on me. And it's like, dude, I don't want that for myself. Yeah. But if these people can promote things organically that they love and maybe get paid for in the meantime, more power to you. But I think that as those situations come up, it creates, I think the team we have at NCFit now realizes that we really are trying to build something special, and we're trying to treat our team really well financially. And that the better NCFit does, the more they're going to see. So for example, for our team, it's really important that with this new app, the team that's a big part of that digital app should see some type of benefit from it. So I want them to know that we're not just saying, hey, as the company does better, you'll do better. I want everybody to see that. And our coaches and our team will be seeing that in the very near future.
You're alluding to something there, it sounds like. You're saying like just growth in general.
Particularly pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, we're restructuring. We will be restructuring that in the very near future.
How often do you revisit comp plans, do you think? Because those are tricky, because the business shrinks and expands and adds verticals and does stuff. And comp plans are one of the most difficult things to do in a medium to large size business. I
think what you got to do is you got to sit down with your top team and just say, like, or even just yourself, and just say, do I feel like our team is being adequately financially incentivized? Can the company pay more is the first question. Should it pay more is also a question, right? Like, you might be able to, but maybe you shouldn't, because the workload that person is doing is only drives a certain return for the business. So you have to have an obligation. That's a huge benefit. If you're an owner, if you're an operator, if you're a coach, you got to think, how much value could I provide for the business so that the business is obligated to pay me more because of how much value I'm adding. MDV is a really good example of that. MDV comes on, he comes on as a chief fitness officer, enhances our fitness and coaching. Then he takes on all of our online programming and a bunch of other stuff, adds more value. Now he takes on as an influencer, and he could drive more value for us through app downloads, through whatever else it is. And so he's making himself so desirable from a business perspective that the company has to say, hey, we need to compensate him effectively. And so we do those check-ins on a, maybe quarterly basis. And then we start saying, okay, in this next quarter, if we hit certain benchmarks, we need to go and reevaluate. So we will be doing that for our coaches here in the very near future, and they'll be finding out about that.
Do you have hybrid comp plans where it's base plus performance-based or commission pay?
We have a very, maybe from more on the sales side, there's a few like incentives put in. Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to, like new things coming in? Will they be more performance-based?
No, like for our coaches, for example, I'll just tell you. So our coaches, let's just say they're paid, for the sake of argument, $50 an hour. But with that comes depending on like how many hours you work, your 401k, your health and dental, and then also PTO policy. Well, what we're finding is that, our coaches want to make more at the top end dollar mark, and they don't necessarily care as much about some of these other benefit, things.
Sure.
So maybe we don't need to have such an accrued PTO policy. But maybe instead, let's try and get them $3, $4, $5 more an hour, and figure out what do our team actually want? How do they want to be incentivized? Let's focus on that as a business versus what we think they want. So those are some of the changes we're making here in the near future.
I talked to a lot of gym owners, and staff development is a big topic. One thing I try to push people to, and it's difficult, without trying to sound like I'm trying to plug my microgym university, whatever. You want your staff people to be well-educated businessmen and businesswomen. You want them to be able to make business decisions, because if it's constantly looking up to what the superior manager above them is like, what's the right business decision? Now I think there's a fear with a lot of small gyms. They're like, well, I don't want to create my competition. I don't want to, level this guy's business knowledge up, and then he goes and opens up a gym down the street. One thing I've always found, even, with Isaac here, I've always felt like I have someone who has, they have the same business, should make the better, if not the same business decision that I would. And you know how powerful that is to have around. Would you instill that at a certain level here? Like for NCFit at the brick and mortar level, at what position are you like, okay, they're no longer just doing technician work, coaching, whatever. We need them to actually be very smart business people. Or is that top to bottom?
I think that once we see an interest in a coach, so let's just say you're a great coach and you're a really good, coach, but you have interest in other things, we could start instilling some of these concepts and ideas with them. And if they start to show that they have an interest in business, we'll talk to them about it. But some of the coaches don't want to talk about it. And the ones that we try and talk business with or finances with, it turns them off and it drives them actually the opposite direction.
So I would do programming or something, maybe.
Yeah. So if you're a top-notch coach and you get into our programming team, hell yeah. But if you're a top-notch coach, we have an interest in sales and marketing. So I'll give you an example. Right now, we have some coaches who are really good at session planning and programming. There are brick and mortar coaches, but they also work on our online programming team. We have about 10 of them. So they work on so the programs that you see in our gyms on a daily basis are curated by about a team of 10. Now, on the flip side of that, we have some other coaches who might not be writing session plans and briefs, but maybe they're more on the sales side, and we could see it. They like the sales side. Now we're enhancing that by paying commissions on if they incorporate gym memberships, which we had never done before. And that's a new thing at our business, because you have some people who really want to dive more into this side. You have some people who want to get more into the business side. And finding those people and listening, and not just hearing what they want to tell you, but actually trying to figure out what do you really like to do, and then enhancing has been really valuable for us. And my goal here at NCFit is to make the best team leaders we can, the best coaches we can. Whatever you want to do, I want to share as much insight as I can. And if you go off and go start your own business, more power to you. If you become the best coach and go somewhere else, more power to you. But that is a difficult thing to state, and it's an even more difficult thing to do. But it's something that we have to do as an organization, is be looked at as an organization that's trying to pull people up and not stifle them.
I always look at business. There's times where you're a mercenary and sometimes where you're a missionary. If you have a mission of the business, something bigger than yourself, bigger than the actual company, and that's the thing that, like, when your feet hit the ground in the morning, you're just fucking jazzed up and you're going to go. And there's other times where you're a mercenary, like, I've got to find, just lost a coach, I've got to find the next head coach, I've got to make $10,000 this month, I've got to get a new location. for you, which one of those roles do you think you play more with now at your current level? Are you more of a missionary? And then obviously in the beginning, would you have been more of a mercenary?
Yeah, of course. I think you go from mercenary to missionary, because now the idea is, and here's a really interesting thought. If everybody on your team was getting paid $10 million a year, what could you do to incentivize them to continue to come in and work hard? It was something I was thinking about. So we live in the Silicon Valley, and I have a lot of friends who have made a lot of money from stock. And some of these guys decide to stay at the company. Money is not a motivator, right? They have 100 million, 50 million, 20, whatever. But why do they stay or not stay at a company is purely designed by if they're in alignment with the mission, the vision, they feel like they're getting fulfillment of the work they're doing. So at NCFit, our goal is to combine both those worlds. My goal is to get to a financial position where people are getting paid a lot of money. I want them to make a lot of money. But simultaneously, I want them to be able to feel comfortable staying with us because they know there's a bigger vision. And the bigger vision is as simple as this, right? Provide for myself and our family, provide for as many other families as possible through our coaches and our team, and then therefore impact as many members as possible, and then go do really good shit. Yeah. And that's the vision, right? In August, we're doing major blood drives. In September, we're doing Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month. Like all these kind of things you could do with the bigger team, right? Provide for your team, make them do what they love for a living, have them impact members, and with a big organization, go do more. And if you can get people bought in on that philosophy, truly, and make you feel like as you are that way as a leader, then money becomes like a secondary thing. They still need to make money, of course, but they need to be bought in on the vision. Otherwise, they're not going to get up in the morning and hit it with the same impact as they could.
I agree with all that. And I think maybe when I think of mercenary, it's not just someone chasing money. It's someone who, like, I look at your new initiative, like what you did with this app, that was a lot of money, time, and energy spent. That was you going out and hunting and killing something new. You didn't have to. A missionary goes, I'm content with what I have. I'm just going to keep doing this thing really well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so when I think missionary or mercenary, I'm thinking someone's like, okay, what's the next fucking thing to go out and kill? So maybe that leads more to like the innovator. If you were to give yourself one role, like you're technically your CEO, correct?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing as CEO? Are you just innovating? Are you keeping all these guys corralled in and doing the right thing? Or what is it that Jason does?
I mean, to add validity to what you're saying, like if I am a missionary, right, and I have this mission as a business, rolling out the app is in a direct alignment with that because we can impact more people's lives through fitness. So that's an important thing to reflect on, because if you don't have that locked in, then your team looks at you like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Yeah. Like for example, dude, we signed a deal. We've done some deals in the past that some of our team, I think, looked at like, what are you guys doing?
Like
right?
What?
Well,
you don't throw anyone under the bus, but just give me an idea.
We were opening up brick and mortars inside of conventional gyms for a while, and I think that we did a poor job explaining the why to the team. And even though it was impacting more people, we weren't being authentic to who we were, and we were spending so much time on this deal that it took us away from our core competency elsewhere. And so I think we have to learn to say no more often, but take opportunities where they come. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, for example, like if I go out there and I promote if I go start a new coffee company, or if I go do something like this, our team is like, dude, that's not in alignment with the mission of the company. The mission of the company is to spread fitness to as many people as possible. Like, we don't really need to be going down this path. And every time I want to go down that path, our team needs to wrangle me back in.
Talk to me about that. That's super interesting, because two of the licensees we're looking at the Inca contract with, it's a larger global gym chain on the East Coast, and they're looking to put urban movement inside of their locations. Now, I've managed global gyms that have had that, and it didn't work for various reasons. I'm curious as to when you looked at that, because obviously you said you initially thought this is a good move, and your team kind of gave you like, is it?
Yeah. So we've done two deals with
was it Bay? What's the Bay Club?
Bay Club was number one,
yeah.
And LA Fitness was number two.
Oh, wow. You had an LA Fitness location?
So this is where it gets interesting. So I wasn't referring earlier to LA Fitness, by the way. LA Fitness has been a phenomenal partner. They're great human beings. We love working with them. Bay Club.
Put it on the shelf.
Put it on the shelf. Bay Club, not quite the same. We did not have an extremely pleasant, that relationship was definitely one that, looking back on it from a high level perspective, the leadership just didn't have the same mission and vision that we had, core values. And that ended up being detrimental. And so I would say that if you are
lawsuits, like anything like that?
No, but just not good.
Okay.
And I would say that if you are going to go into business with someone like that, financially, we were both actually very successful. This is the weirdest part about this deal. This is why this deal still is weird. We were actually financially in a great position at this company. We were providing them a lot of revenue, and they were providing us revenue. It was great. All was good. But at a high level, we didn't align with the leadership, and we weren't moving in the same direction. And so I think that if you are going to open up brick and mortar inside a conventional gym, from that top leadership, they need to see value in the type of training that you're providing, and you need to stay authentic to what you do. And where we went wrong is that we were authentic from the get-go. This is who we are. This is what we're doing. And the leadership wanted us to change into something that we weren't, and we weren't prepared to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of got the friction started, and then it just kind of escalated.
That's exactly how I've seen it. Then the thing that makes me hopefully hope that my experiment is that they're purchasing a license. So it's like I'm like Les Mills to them.
Yeah.
They're essentially getting rid of Les Mills and all that bullshit, and they're going to pay me for my license for our thing.
And we were operating it in there, so it was a little bit different for us.
You had a business inside of a business.
Yep. And then with LA Fitness, that's a really interesting one too. So LA Fitness, we started construction. We were starting construction on 3 locations in Southern California.
That they funded.
It was a partnership.
Okay.
And we were mid-construction on the first location when COVID hit. And so that was a big, I wouldn't even call it a lesson learned. It was actually going to be a really cool partnership. We were really excited about it. But now, as a business, we've had to refocus and say, hey, where is our time best spent? What is our team? Where are we going? And hone in. And so LA Fitness, as far as we're concerned, is kind of, we're slow playing it. We're keeping the relationship strong. They're a great organization. But we're really focused on NCFit and getting our brick and mortar back up to speed and getting where we need to be.
So will you maybe revisit the LA Fitness deals?
Oh yeah, I mean those guys are great.
Yeah,
it's just that was a big. I don't even want to call it a lesson learned. The other one was in terms of leadership. Sure. Like the leadership at LA Fitness, I have nothing but great things to say about. In other organizations, not so much.
The other interesting thing when we think about that is, you're going to now get a bunch of DMs and all people like, did Jason say, wait, I want to do that. I want to open those up. You get this one all the time. How do I get corporate wellness, whatever? Mm-hmm. And I told you, it boils down to 2 things. Your network, the people you've worked hard to create relationships with, invite you, introduce you, connect you with these other people, and it happens. Or it's serendipity.
Yep.
You backed up and you ding somebody's Ferrari, and then you find out he owns LA Fitness, and you guys get off to a great conversation. For you,
dude, I've had both happen. By the way,
you've hit a fucking Ferrari.
Dude, so I'll give you a great example. MetLife Insurance, right? Okay. Giant company. I was in Cabo, and we were at this charity event in Cabo. Or I don't even know. It might have been a charity event. We were in Cabo, and I'm having dinner with this guy, and we're just happen to be sitting at the same table, and it was a shared event, and we're chatting, having some drinks, relaxing. I was like, oh, what do you do? And we were just talking. He's like, oh, I work for MetLife Insurance up in San Francisco. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I live up in the Bay Area as well. And he goes, what do you do? I was like, oh, well, I have a fitness company. We do this. He goes, actually, we're looking to have an operator maybe come help us with one of our gyms. Like, huh. So that dinner occurred, and it took us 1 year from that dinner to end up inking a deal and starting servicing MetLife Insurance corporate wellness locations. But it's a really interesting anomaly to what you said. It just, something happened.
Serendipity.
But it would have fizzled. Mm-hmm. But you get their card, and you follow up, and you follow up, and you follow up. The old school meaning in sales, right? You keep following up until they tell you to stop.
Die, buy, or tell you to fuck off.
Right? And so that's what we did, and so that's what got us MetLife Insurance. But then you have other relationships, right, where you have to put in the hard work. And so I'll give you, you have to put in the hard work and be authentic about it. So 2 weeks ago, I was in Austin, Texas, how we started this whole conversation. I was out there because one of my friends from BJJ Fanatics invited me. But from a business perspective, my intention was create a network of jiu-jitsu and understand it better, right? There was no specific business intent, but just I want to understand the jiu-jitsu space from a high level at a better understanding. Be like going to the CrossFit Games and getting introduced to all the movers and shakers and just understanding it more. Well, through that, we now sparked a conversation with one of the top guys to go create content together. But it was because I went there, I shook their hand, I met with them, and they saw something in me and I saw something in them, and now it's creating relationships. So that's what I do for the business.
For a lot of people look at those things and they're like, oh, you got lucky, you bumped into MetLife guy, whatever it may be. And I tell you, like, luck is a real thing, but luck only shows up when you're busting your ass. There's no one who is sitting on their couch doing dick and luck knocked on the door and goes, hey, guess what? I've got it made for you. Like, besides a lottery ticket, right? Yeah. Besides that, luck is something that is a byproduct, I believe, of serendipity, you know, sleeping with network, and something happens and you take action on it. Because you said very few people are going to come by and stroke you a check. You had to work for a year to make that MetLife deal come to fruition. For you, when you look at business and everything you've done, how much of it is due to luck and how much of it is due to hard work?
I mean, you can't have one without the other is kind of my philosophy. Like, there's definitely some luck involved for sure, right? You can even go back to the beginning of this business. I won the CrossFit Games. A week later, I was already opening up a gym, right? There's a lot of luck there, winning. Was it hard work? Sure. But was it luck? Yeah, absolutely. And then you can look at these different things, right? I got lucky because I was introduced to the right person at the right time for corporate wellness. I got lucky because we found this unique opportunity to go do this thing. So I think it's it goes back to like this idea of like, I like to talk about like doors opening, doors closing, knowing which ones to run through and which ones to not. But it's a good thing to get out and create relationships because opportunities can come.
Isaac, you were giving me the rap. What time is it? 2:46, and is that we gotta cut it. Yeah, 2:50.
It's 2:46.
It's 2:46.
How long have we been rapping for? Like 2.5 hours?
Yeah, 2.5 hours, man.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Jason fucking Khalipa, thank you so much, buddy.
Dude, thank you. Wow. That went by fast.